couple on the property. Larry English calls the police because of a white couple on the property who he suspects of stealing or intending to steal from him. He relates in that call, I believe, that items were stolen previously during the previous intrusion. $2,000 worth of equipment was stolen from a boat parked inside the house on the property. The only person we know was there previously.
All right, news now from Fox. We'll continue here, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And welcome everyone here to News Now from Fox as we do continue. Hope everyone is having a great day and a happy Friday to everybody. Wow, Friday the 13th in 2020. Let's hope for the very best here today as we continue to roll on with the news of the day around the country. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be here with you as we really just try to give you the events from coast to coast as they are happening. So as soon as we see some live events pop up, we will bring it to you. Right now, we're on standby. Could there be President Trump statement inside the Oval Office today? We are monitoring that right now because at this hour, at this very moment, he is doing a closed press event there, meeting with the Project Warp Speed, talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. Usually when they say closed press, that doesn't really mean it's going to be closed press for long. That's what we've seen in the past there from this Trump administration. So we'll be seeing if President Trump says allow the cameras in, we're going to take you there as soon as that happens. So be on standby for that. That could be some big breaking news as we really haven't heard from him publicly since the election there. So we'll keep an eye on that, everybody, as we roll on. But we got some COVID-19 updates, some big talkers to get to right now. So I want to bring that up to you right here on News Now from Fox. We're going to start out in Chicago, where the news was made yesterday of Chicago. The mayor there, Lori Lightfoot, that you see right there, saying, you know what, starting on Monday, we're going on a lockdown there. And that is getting a lot of people upset. Big pushback in Chicago after she's really, in fact, canceling Thanksgiving there for millions. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot facing intense backlash for her recent round of lockdown orders, which comes just days after she joined large crowds celebrating Joe Biden's election victory. Amid national spikes of coronavirus cases, the Windy City's top Democrat announced a 30-day stay-at-home advisory that will take effect this Monday. The advisory calls on all Chicagoans to do the following: stay home unless for essential reasons, stop having guests over, including family members you did not live with, avoid non-essential travel, cancel traditional Thanksgiving plans, she summarized on Twitter. The orders suggest that Lightfoot has been taking the coronavirus outbreak seriously, but just last Saturday she was seen maskless while touting the projected victory of President-elect Biden in a video she shared on her Twitter account. Do we have that video? Yes, we do. Here it is, and take a look. So she's maskless. You got hundreds of people on this street there in Chicago, and no problems right there. But then days later, she says, you know what, we're going in to a massive lockdown there. 30-day lockdown. That's the video that she tweeted out from that Saturday when all the celebrations were happening across the country. So she's getting some deep pushback for Chicagoans. They're saying, wait, you can do this, but I can't have my grandma and grandpa over for Thanksgiving? I mean, what is going on, people are saying. The video shows the mask dangling from one of Lightfoot's ears, and that's what we are seeing right here on News Now from Fox. Critics took notice of what they considered to be a blatant hypocrisy. People couldn't be with their loved ones in their final moments on this earth. Families couldn't hold funerals and grieve together. Churches were closed under threat of penalty, but Lori Lightfoot can flout all the rules and scream into a megaphone. That was from a radio host, Dana Loesch, reacting there. And Democratic hypocrisy. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot joins thousands in the street to praise Joe Biden 1 week after she issues an order telling people to stay home, stop having guests over, and cancel traditional Thanksgiving plans. The Washington Examiner contributor Mark Vargas said 4 days after Mayor Lightfoot addressed a huge crowd to celebrate election results, she announced a stay-at-home advisory for Chicago. Numbers are out of control. The advisory might be smart, but needlessly hurt her credibility with this. Dispatch reporter Declan Garvey tweeted out there as well. So that is just some of the many people putting on Twitter and really social media saying enough is enough there. The Chicago mayor's office did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for a comment, and we will continue to be on the lookout there if she does offer up any statements there. Let's continue on right here on News Now from Fox as we have another COVID-19 related update, and this one has to do about the Catholic diocese as they are taking on Cuomo's restrictions in New York City. We're going to get you that update right here on News Now from Fox as the Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn is turning to the Supreme Court over coronavirus restrictions that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo imposed that include limits on how many congregants can gather for religious services. The emergency court filing submitted just yesterday compares the prohibition houses of worship face with the relative freedom afforded to many businesses under an order that Cuomo issued back in October, in which he designated color-coded zones with varying degrees of limitations. While the executive order effectively closes churches and other houses of worship, all businesses deemed essential by the governor, including everything from supermarkets to pet stores, huge hardware stores to brokers' offices, are permitted to remain open without any capacity limitations whatsoever, even in the most restrictive red zones. In orange zones, even the vast majority of non-essential businesses, including department stores, can remain open without limitation, yet churches cannot. And we're also seeing, you got liquor stores open, you got casinos open as well, all in the mix there, but they're putting a hard stamp on churches. Cuomo's order limited services at houses of worship to no more than 10 people in red zones, regardless of the size of the building, with orange zones capped out at 25 and yellow zones at 50% capacity. The diocese claims that they were hit with these restrictions, even though they themselves had not seen any spike in COVID-19 cases, while businesses deemed, quote, essential, such as grocery stores, large hardware stores, and pet stores, were unaffected in red zones, and more businesses enjoyed freedom in other zones without restrictions on capacity. They allege that such a difference in treatment violated the free exercise clause of the First Amendment. Absent relief on as applied basis, thousands of the diocese's parishioners in Brooklyn and Queens will continue to be deprived of their core free exercise rights on a daily basis until the matter is resolved in the lower courts, the filing said. Even though it is undisputed that the diocese has complied with all prior health regulations and operated safely without any COVID-19 spread since being permitted to reopen several months ago. A lower court had previously ruled against the diocese. The various zones in New York City are also home to large Orthodox Jewish populations. The order prompted outcries and protests from members of some of those communities, claiming that they amounted to anti-Semitic discrimination after New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had singled out the city's Jewish community for large gatherings that violated restrictions, while not doing the same in response to gatherings by other populations. This week, Cuomo announced new restrictions in response to a recent spike in COVID-19 cases. As of Friday night, bars, restaurants, liquor licenses in the state must close at 10 p.m., as will gyms. Indoor gatherings, even in private homes, will be capped at 10 people. Cuomo also urged residents to wear masks, get tested, and follow coronavirus-related health guidelines. Take this seriously, he said there. So that was the latest there from New York, as really the Catholic Diocese in Brooklyn trying to get pushback and trying to get some help from the Supreme Court. That was a lot to get to with the COVID-19 updates. Let's continue to roll on now. Some politics in the mix. That's where we have our very own Ron Hoon, Fox 10 from Phoenix there, talking with Chris Wallace, giving us an update on the week that was. And boy, wasn't it a week in politics.
Friday visit with Chris Wallace. He is the anchor of Fox News Sunday. Chris, good morning. Morning to you, Ron.
Let me bounce this headline off you. This was right from Fox News yesterday. Democrats privately admit they must win Senate control if they hope to get progressives in the cabinet. Now, was that the message that somebody got out of the election? Move more to the left? I mean, if Joe Biden wants to be the healer, it seems like he'd be looking for more centrists.
Well, there's a split in the Democratic Party, quite a split. And you're seeing, particularly because Democrats did not do as well on Capitol Hill as they had hoped to, there was a lot of thought that they were going to take the Senate fairly easily. Now they're just hanging on by their fingernails, hoping to flip 2 Republican seats in Georgia in the special election in January. And yes, in the House, they're going to hold on to a majority, but they're going to lose at least a half dozen seats rather than pick up that number. So there's quite a split as to what happened. And the centrists are saying there was too much talk about defund the police from the left wing of the Democratic Party, too much talk about the Green New Deal and Medicare for all. And meanwhile, liberals like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are firing back and saying it's because we didn't push even further. So there's a real split in the party as to what the problem was on Election Day, what the solution is. What's interesting is that assuming that Republicans do hold on to the Senate, and I think that's more likely than not, because as I say, they'd have to flip 2 red seats in Georgia, a lot of the pressure on Joe Biden is going to go out the window. There's talk about the left wing wanting Elizabeth Warren as Treasury Secretary. He can easily say, look, there's no chance Mitch McConnell would ever allow that. There's a lot of talk about ending the filibuster or packing the Supreme Court. Again, he can say the Republican-controlled Senate won't do that. So there is a split in the party, and a lot of it may be settled not by the Democrats, but by Republican control of the Senate.
Okay, so let's shift now to the legal fight that's going on. Chris, how do you see these lawsuits from the Trump team playing out? I'm not saying he's going to concede this weekend, but do you pick up any sense in Washington that his chances to overturn the Biden victory are fading?
Oh, sure. Look, all of the news organizations a week ago, last Saturday, called the election for Joe Biden. He seems to have overwhelming leads in all of the key swing states that people are talking about, like Pennsylvania, like Arizona, which Fox had been the first to call, but now everybody has called it for Biden, like Nevada. He doesn't even need Georgia, where there's going to be a recount. And the general feeling is there's certainly within the White House, there's a lot of casting about, and the president is doing a lot of it, and he continues to say, at least on Twitter, that he won by a lot, and once all these cases are settled, he's going to be the victor. But I can tell you, most serious people in Washington, I'm not saying none, but most serious people in Washington of both stripes don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we're not talking, as in Florida, about 300 or 400 votes. We're talking about, in Pennsylvania, 40 or 50,000 votes. They don't find that kind of irregularity. They don't find that kind of miscounting and a recount. So, but having said that, I'm not sure you'll ever see Donald Trump concede, Ron. I think there's a real possibility he'll leave office and continue to be a major public figure and maybe even run for president again in 2024, basically holding out the argument, we got robbed. I got robbed, and all of my millions of supporters got robbed.
Wow. Okay. So your Sunday morning show, I'm really looking forward to it. You have 2 very bright legal minds joining you.
Brilliant. First of all, we're going to have a top person from the Biden transition. Then, as you say, we're going to have Ken Starr, former federal judge, former special counsel in the Lewinsky case, and Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard law professor who's as liberal as Starr is conservative, to go over all these legal issues we talked about. And then just real quickly, my power player of the week, Alex Trebek. I was lucky enough 8 years ago, Jeopardy came to Washington and did a round of what they called Power Player Jeopardy, and I was one of the contestants, and I got to interview him. We talk about him. We talk about how the game is played. It's a really unique behind-the-scenes look, and we want to give people, this last look at Alex Trebek he passes from the scene.
All right, Chris, thanks. Sounds like it'll be a great show. Appreciate your time. Talk to you next week.
All right, our thanks to Ron Hoon and Chris Wallace for providing that for us, and that's why they call it the fastest 15 minutes here in news. We're just getting started here for you. Some of you will be taking a quick 2-minute break right here on News Now from Fox as we continue to roll on right here. A live look in Los Angeles right now. Sky Fox is up, and away. Well, we got this shot here for you. Let's bring you some more updates right now, and this is all fitting because it is California, and we are getting some word right now of California, Oregon, and Washington are issuing travel advisories as COVID-19 cases continue to increase across the country. The California Governor Gavin Newsom, Oregon Governor Kate Brown, and Washington Governor Jay Inslee issued travel advisories today, urging visitors entering their states or returning home from travel outside these states to self-quarantine to slow the spread of the virus. The travel advisories urge against non-essential out-of-state travel, ask people to self-quarantine for 14 days after arriving from another state or country, and encourage residents to stay local. California just surpassed a sobering threshold, 1 million COVID-19 cases with no signs of the virus slowing down. That's from the California governor there, Gavin Newsom. Increased cases are adding pressure on our hospital systems and threatening the lives of seniors, essential workers, and vulnerable Californians. Travel increases the risk of spreading COVID-19, and we all must collectively increase our efforts at this time to keep the virus at bay and save lives. In addition to urging individuals from other states or countries to self-quarantine for 14 days after arrival, the state's travel advisories recommend individuals limit their interactions to their immediate household there. So they're saying, hey, don't travel. California, Oregon, Washington, and we'll see how they'll try to enforce that there, but this is a live Sky Fox image for you on this Friday as we just continue to roll on right here for you on News Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We still got a lot of news to get to, so sit back and relax as we get you through it here.
This morning we're talking to the director of the State Health Department, Department of Health Services, Dr. Kara Christ. Dr. Christ, always great talking with you. Again, off the top, thank you for all your efforts and what you're doing. We talked, I think it was last week, when we were at about 2,000 cases a day. And at the time I asked you if 2,000 cases a day now were the same as 2,000 cases a day in July, and you said you didn't think so because for a number of reasons. Are 3,000 cases now concerning you at this point? Is it the same as 3,000 cases we saw in July?
So we are concerned with this new increase in numbers. We're continuing to see that increase, our percent positivity increase, and we are starting to see hospital utilization go up. So we are concerned, and we're on high alert here at the department.
All right, so, and I've asked this question as well. Out of 3,000 people, and I know you can't give me an exact number, but if you had to estimate, based on what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, how many of those 3,000 people do you think are seriously ill? How many people do you think will become, with mild symptoms, and how many are asymptomatic? I mean, to be able to understand what 3,000 cases in 24 hours means.
So those 3,000 cases are over the past few days. If you look at what the severity would be, I would take a look at the hospitalization. So we currently have 1,300 people in an inpatient bed and additional patients in the ICU. So those are going to be our most serious, but we know that a lot of people could be at home with significant symptoms, feeling really run down, sore throat, headaches, muscle aches. And so we would encourage everybody, if you're sick, make sure that you stay home.
So we're starting to see some schools, Dr. Christ, bringing the kids back out. And I know the way you guys have set it up is you lay out some metrics, and then the districts make the decision. If you were running a school district right now with these numbers, what would your call be? Would you keep the kids in class?
So if I was running a school district, I would keep the kids in class. There's a lot of benefits to the children just being in the classroom, but I would be making sure that I was enforcing mask use, that I was physically distancing those kids. I would discourage after-school programs, after-school sports, and make sure that my parents knew that when kids went home, the mask wearing and the physical distancing from people outside their household doesn't stop just because they're out of the classroom.
Because there are mental health aspects as well. Maybe we should point that out. We've got about a minute left. And why do you feel it's important to have kids in school?
So there's a lot of things that school provides beyond the education. You've got that peer interaction. You have teachers and peers that are putting eyes on kids. Sometimes school is the safest place for a child to be. They also get nutrition there. And we are starting to, we've seen an increase in child suicides this year. So we want to make sure that all kids have eyes on them to make sure they're doing okay and get them connected with services if they're not.
Okay, last question here, Dr. Chris, because we're running out of time. So we're edging up towards 10% positivity now, and that's getting to some of the metrics when we were looking at when you were recommending businesses roll back and shut down. The governor has basically come out and said he doesn't see any more shutdowns on the horizon. I talked to Dr. Ross Goldberg just a short time ago. I asked him, I said, if you had a question for Dr. Chris, what would it be? He said he wants to know what is the plan going forward, if we're continuing to see what we're going to see, or if it even gets worse. What's the plan?
So what we would be looking at is working with our local health departments as those benchmarks continue to increase, because a 10% positivity is going to put those counties into the substantial metric for that as well. We're still watching that hospital metric, but we will likely start working with our local health departments on occupancy and ensuring that they are enforcing those mitigation measures such as mask wearing in the establishments and physical distancing.
So if I can just clarify that, what you're saying right now is you don't see further rollbacks of these restrictions. What you see is better enforcement of the current restrictions we have going forward.
And potential some rollbacks of occupancy. So when we went into moderate, we allowed people to bring in bigger crowds. So we might start working to look at rolling that back as well.
Dr. Kara Christ, again, thank you for taking the time to talk with us this morning, and thank you for your and your team's efforts. Hope we can talk to you again soon. This morning we're talking.
All right, in Arizona today, posting 3,015 new cases in that state. So we continue to give you the updates right here on News Now from Fox. So let's keep it going with the COVID-19 coverage. Now we're going to take you out to Philadelphia. We do have Dr. Mike on deck to give us really an update, what he is seeing across the board national-wide on this pandemic.
Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine joining us on this Friday. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
Seems like it's been another long week. I do want to recap what happened during this week, starting with where we stand with the numbers in this virus.
Numbers are going way up. In fact, I believe the number yesterday nationwide was 260,000 new cases. Frightening. And that's not going to be the last time we hear of a record breaking number. We're really in it. It's getting worse and worse by the day.
And when we look even closer at the numbers and the patients, we're actually seeing a different set of patients than we did at the start of this pandemic. A lot of the patients were over 60. Now that number is much lower, Doc.
Well, the numbers indicate that young people are the majority of cases, probably most likely due to the fact that they tend to go out, congregate, ignore the current pandemic, and pretty much they're tired of it. Many of them are asymptomatic, and because of that, they spread the virus without knowing it. Then those people then can spread it to other people in a distant fashion, leading to both hospitalizations and even deaths.
Yeah, I know we're seeing younger patients here. What about the very young? A lot of parents, they come to you, they ask you, what about my children? How concerned should I be about my child and exposure?
Well, I believe that there is significant data, and we know this, that the numbers are going up in younger people, especially the very young. They, thank God, don't tend to get all that sick, but they can spread the virus. And there has been data suggesting that they have a much higher level of virus in them when they do get it, making them able to spread the virus. There's a lot of controversy about this. Some data indicates that they may not spread the virus as much as, say, older kids, teenagers. But for the most part, the way I look at this virus, Thomas, everyone that has the virus can spread the virus, no matter who you are.
And you mentioned the controversy. A lot of parents are fired up. Should students remain or continue with in-person learning moving forward?
Well, when it comes to in-house learning, remember, there are consequences with kids not socializing, being in a setting where they're learning with other children, having that supervision. Remember, a lot of parents have to work. So what do? They can't be home watching their kid, being the surrogate in-house teacher. They have to make a living to pay for things like food. So this is a real problem. And for those who are in that, my heart goes out to them. The bottom line is this, that if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to be in a far worse place than we are now. And they're talking about a prediction of 282,000 deaths by December 5th. Let's think about that. All right, that's only several weeks away. And all of the models, and by the way, they use about 36 models. It's almost like when you have weathercasters looking at spaghetti models. Well, sure. They look at 36 different models. And for the most part, we are in for a whole lot of hurt down the road.
And we're starting to see that hurt in our hospitals across the country. A spike in cases, the number of hospitalizations are going up. Is there a growing concern, Doc, about staffing issues as we move forward, as we look toward this peak or another peak?
Well, one of the things that keeps me up at night right now is the fact that this virus is now everywhere. In the beginning, it was on the East and West Coast. And what you saw was a call to arms, if you will. People were coming from the Midwest to help out staff hospitals should that surge get even worse. And now it's everywhere. Even in places like North Dakota, where the hospital administrators are allowing their healthcare workers to care for COVID-19 positive patients, even if they are positive with the virus and asymptomatic themselves.
And you get the standby orders as well, correct?
I'm always on call, ready to go. I literally, I'm not bragging about this, I've had 4 days off since March 13th. And so the issue is, when this all started, all of us are here at the ready to go. And should I need to be deployed to an ICU or an ER, I'm ready to go. Got my bags packed. Right now, though, my outpatient practice is going crazy, because remember, Thomas, that for about a month and a half or so, no one was getting health care. Now people are coming back. They need mammograms. They need colonoscopies. I have diagnosed more cancer in the last month or so than I think I did all of last year. And this is because of the backlog of people coming in now. So that's part of the problem. We have hospitals that are full with traditional patients, and now the COVID numbers are going up, and we have to juggle where we put the COVID-19 patients and what do we do with the folks that just had a bypass surgery.
Well, it's concerning. I mean, you're not only dealing with the physical, you're also dealing with the mental. I know new research came out, 1 in 5 diagnosed with COVID-19, they're going to be diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder like anxiety, depression, insomnia within 3 months.
No question about it. This is taking a toll on every level, both physical and emotional. It is unprecedented. And I hope and pray, Thomas, that in our lifetimes, we never see this again. It could happen, but hopefully not.
All right. I want to try to end the week on a positive note here, because there was encouraging news on the vaccine front. Pfizer announcing success in phase 3 of its trials. Can you get us up to speed here?
This is about as excited as I can get, as hard as that is to believe. The bottom line is that Pfizer's vaccine, which is a new type of vaccine, it's an mRNA, messenger RNA vaccine, tremendous positive results in its trials. And what I'm thinking is that if we can just hold on, we need to wear masks, socially distance, put our own individual civil liberties, perhaps, and independence a little bit back in the benefit of our own, all of our society. Perhaps that's one mentality that we have to adopt. Wear your mask. It's your civic duty. Stay away from crowds. It's your civic duty. Make sure that you use good hand hygiene. It's your civic duty. And when it comes to the holidays, be very, very careful and cautious. We will get through this. We're almost there.
And on the mask front, we learned this week new guidance from the CDC. I'm not only protecting you, I'm protecting myself as well.
It's the right thing to do, Thomas. You must wear a mask to not only protect your loved ones, your friends, and society at large, but you also will protect yourself. And so wearing a mask is critical. And in the very beginning, and I want to defend Dr. Fauci on this because I hear this from my patients. Well, in the very beginning, he said, no, listen, this has been a steep learning curve for all of us. None of us, unless you were alive in 1918, went through this. And so it's a learning curve. We now know, without a doubt, that you must wear a mask and that you must do the things that we're telling you to do, like socially distance. If you wear a mask, socially distance, and are an upstanding citizen, we will get through this.
And can you give us a reminder, because we're seeing a lot more masks on the market now, what's the best type of mask to wear?
For the general public, Thomas, I recommend that people wear cotton masks that have high thread count and they have several layers. One, it has to be fitted so that it goes from the top of your nose down to under your chin, and it's washable. What else can you do? It's the best thing. Buy a bunch of them, make them, do whatever you need to do for you and your kids and your family. And maybe for the holidays, make some and give them as presents. Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
You know, Doc, I wonder, because you've been offering this reminder for several months now and people still aren't agreeing to wear the mask. Do you think it's possible to hit the reset button at any point on how divided we've become with combating this virus?
I've thought a lot about this, Thomas, and if you look at countries like China, and look, I believe in the American way. I believe in democracy with my heart and soul. I believe in capitalism. But this time of the planet, it's actually a little better to be in a draconian environment. I hate to say it, because there, in those environments, you don't have a choice about whether you should wear a mask or not. You are mandated to wear a mask. It's not an insult on your civil liberties, your personal freedoms. It's the right thing to do. It's what we all must do. Bottom line, science.
All right, drive it home. Our daily reminder, Dr. Mike, on staying safe.
Need to wear your mask, socially distance yourself, and remember, in 2 weeks or so, Thanksgiving. Think long and hard, folks, about what you're planning to do, because you've got to do it right so you don't harm anyone that you love.
Could make a big difference. Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine out of Philly. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine.
And that was Dr. Mike there from Philadelphia. Thank you so much there to the team there, Fox 29 in Philadelphia. We continue to roll right on here on News Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us. Some of you are going to be taking a quick break here, but stay right here with us. We're bringing back Ron Hoon, and he is going to be talking to a travel agent in Italy as they are seeing more lockdowns happen in Italy. We brought you the interview back in March, in April, and now we're going to check back in with that travel agent there in Italy to see how things are doing. That's coming up here in just moments for people. A lot of people tell me, hey, Mike, on your show, do you do the video? Yes, I do. Do you do the audio? Yes, I do. Do you do the lower thirds? Yes, we do. And will you run the commercial break? Yes, we will. We're just getting started here for you on this Friday on News Now from Fox. Continuing to roll on here for you. We got that interview now with Ron and the travel agent there in Italy. Let's bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox. Let me hit that for you. There we go.
Well, you've been hearing about new lockdowns in Europe, and we thought we would check in with Giulia Pagliari, who is a tour guide in the beautiful city of Rome with Live Italy Tours. And Giulia, you are, I believe I see one of the most iconic views in all of Rome. Yes. Right behind you. Tell us where you are, and maybe you can show us around.
Yes, of course. I am in front of the glorious Spanish Steps. And you can see, of course, the steps behind me and the beautiful square right in the middle of the city center of Rome. This like poor Rome and pretty silent city, completely different from the one you experienced the last time we came, but
Yes,
still
that's
very beautiful. Yeah.
yes, it is still beautiful, but yeah, that was a couple of years ago that I was in Rome and you kind of walked me through the city. I'm wondering, of course, people see the pictures of those Spanish steps behind you, and they're always crowded with tourists. But of course,
Yeah.
I suppose those would mostly be summertime pictures. What we see today in November, how does that compare to how things would normally be in a normal November, non-pandemic?
Actually, yes, like the end of November is the beginning of what we call the low season. So it's really not the spect, but honestly, of course, you would have seen more people than now for sure. We always have people coming, of course, except for those days, you know. We had these summer truce in between these two lockdowns, and we had people coming since they reopened international flights. But of course, nothing compared with the amount of people we commonly have. And what is very sad about, especially the city center of Rome, is that it really emerged how much economy is based on tourism here. And so many restaurants and shops, they never reopened since March. Still, of course, it was like a kind of resurrection for a while. So imagine, for example, what I commonly do in this like last month, you know, so like, yeah, June, July, August. I commonly work 7 days a week, and the Leave Italy Tours, that is the company I work for, commonly sells 50 tours a day, and that provides a job to 100 tour guides who work 7 days a week. And in these like last weeks, we did work once a month each. So
Wow.
let's make this comparison and you will get the situation. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I thought maybe you could show us around a little
yes.
bit there, because once you leave the Spanish Steps, it's quite a shopping area. And as you show us
True.
around, you could also maybe tell us what are the new rules and the sort of semi-lockdown, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
that are in effect in Rome.
Okay, first of all, I'm taking Via dei Condotti. That is one of the most beautiful shopping districts of Rome, the one with the fancy brands. And then I will take side roads. So you will now see behind me, okay, like all the big shops. As you see, we don't have so many people walking outdoors now, especially because of these new decisions that came out just last week on October 25. That was to, ask to the restaurants to close at 6 p.m. That means, of course, there's not that much to do after, that time. So actually, a new decree has been signed just yesterday evening. So these are the new decisions of the Prime Minister. They opted for what they called, as you said, a soft lockdown. That means they kind of divided Italy into 3 risk level areas. And so some measures work for the whole country, and instead others work only for specific regions. Rome is in what they call the low level risk area.
Yeah, I think
So
I
it
saw
means,
that it was like a color coded. You had red,
correct.
which is the worst hit,
Mhm.
orange, and then yellow.
It's like
And you're in the
medium, yeah.
yellow. You're in the yellow range, so that's better
Yeah.
than the others. How does
Absolutely.
yellow and its rules compare with maybe the harder hit areas that are red?
But like for us, it means that we will have a kind of like semi-lockdown. That means, restaurants have to close at 6 p.m. They will close big shopping malls and big markets on weekends. Of course, this is something that was decided already last week. So cinemas and theaters have to stay closed. And now they added also museums and exhibitions. So basically, like, social life is over. But it's not that bad as you said, the red zone. And that means most of all the northern regions of Italy, because they will go through since tomorrow a lockdown that is very close to the one we did on March. Big difference is that schools, they will stay open, and also factories, they will continue to produce and work, but all the shops, the bars, the restaurants, they will stay closed the whole time. So as it was in March, April, and May, people can leave home only with like a kind of certification, and for work and emergency reasons. That's it. So I feel lucky because, of course, I can still go out, comparing with, of course, what will happen in other places. But still, I have to tell you that, of course, we have the feeling, we are back to March somehow. And that is, of course, very strange considering the sacrifice we did for like 3 months,
Well, when you get to a spot where maybe there's a cross street or something, I'll have you slow down. I feel like you're walking right across the city, give you a little bit of a break. But I do want to ask, what is the sense in Rome? Because you're the biggest city, and yet you managed to be at the lowest level of the warnings. So what is the sense as to why things are working reasonably well in Rome, and what's wrong up in the northern region where they keep being hit the hardest?
That is something that is very difficult to tell, honestly. Problem was, of course, that, for example, virus was kind of not existing at all in the south of Italy. And now they included in the red zone also like part of the south. And that is maybe the consequence of what happened in summer, when, of course, they reopened everything and people from the north went to the south, because you have to know that like many people from Calabria, Sicily, they work, like in Milan and Turin. So because of this like big movement that we did during the summer. So that is basically what happened. And of course, now that we are back to these new restrictions, Italians are like long way away from singing from the balconies and claiming for a kind of national sacrifice, to help each other, because we are very frustrated and worried. And of course, it's most of all because of the economic situation. We are worried that we will never, resurrect from this period. That's the point. So,
well, I hear somebody playing some music there, and you mentioned it. I remember, I think it was Piazza Navona in a different part of Rome, where a young man became pretty famous and viral around the world because he took his electric guitar and played for crowds out there. You got to love the Italian spirit when it comes to music, that's for sure. But so, Julia, let me just ask you, overall, what, if you could put your finger on kind of in general how people's attitude is this time around regarding the lockdown? Is it different at all regarding the first time around? Are people more, are they going to be willing in large part to follow it? Do you get a sense that more people are fed up about it? Kind of what's your sense?
Actually, I feel that people have lost trust in the decisions of the government in general. But I think that at the end, we will respect the rules just actually because of the numbers that now they're like even higher than the daily cases in March and April. So we will adapt, of course, to this new situation as we did last time. Big difference is that people seriously, they don't really trust anymore all these rules, especially because few categories have been penalized more than others. And this is about small businesses and, like people who run small activities in general. And this is all about the protests and riots, you for sure heard about that exploded first in Naples, then like Florence and Rome and Milan and Turin. There's also like another big issue in Italy that is the like shadow economy. So like the undeclared workers who are not eligible for the financial help that the government promised, within the last decisions. So we have been kind of left, like abandoned, I would say, for months. And now the government is back with these like new decisions that sound exactly the same ones they took a long time like before. So I feel many people more skeptical than before, for sure. That is the general.
Before we let you go, I thought maybe you could show us around one more time.
Yeah.
As you've been walking around the city, you started at Spanish Steps. Where are you now, and what's it look like?
This is actually a very small square, Piazza San Lorenzo Lucina. I took you here because this is my like gelato place, the one I like the most in Rome, Ciampini. And commonly here, you see a lot of tourists, especially from the States, enjoying the outdoors of Rome. I see someone outside. They will close, in a while, as I told you. But again, of course, you should see like before and after pictures to trust me. But I have to tell you that it's like much less people than commonly, than in common, like normal times, let's say like this.
And as we're taping this, Rome time, it's coming up on 5 p.m. And so the restaurants where you see people now, they're going to be closing down by 6 o'clock, which is not a very normal experience for the city of Rome with all of its great restaurants. Do I have that right?
Yes, absolutely. You know how it works here, that we commonly eat very late, that is about 9 p.m. We stay outside, till like midnight at least. So it's about, of course, like culture and traditions. Now I'm taking a very small side road that takes us to the Pantheon. So if you wait for a while, I will show you that other magnificent monument of Rome.
Okay.
Just takes a few minutes. So
yeah,
let's talk and then I will show you the monument.
And what are they saying as you take us to this other location in Rome? What are they saying in terms of how long it will last this time, these new lockdowns?
Actually, they said it will last till December the 3rd. That is, again, something that is difficult to trust because last time they postponed the end of lockdown almost like every 2 weeks. So knows the story, like propaganda, let's say, says that we are doing this other sacrifice to save Christmas. So that's the goal for us, you know, because of course it's part of our traditions to be with the family, like as it is now, of course, in all over the world. So we see if these new decisions will help or not.
And what are the family restrictions or the restrictions on people gathering? Of course, over here in the States, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. It's probably the one time of year that you expect the most family, either that or Christmas, you know, to get together. What are the restrictions on those kind of private gatherings?
That is actually very strange because you are not supposed to be like with more than 5 people in your place. But you know that in Italy, especially in the south, we have very big families, few times composed by 20 people, 25 people. So that is, of course, something difficult to control. But actually, all the decisions they took are for avoiding, you know, people, of course, gathering together. So no friends, only family members in the same like house and things like that. So
Okay.
it's like not social life.
Right. Do you want to flip the camera around one more time and then show us? You said you're kind of coming up on another famous
yes,
view of Rome.
this is
Tell
a
us
very
where you
small,
are. Yeah.
This is actually Via di Campomarzio. It's a very small side road that connects the parliament to the Pantheon, and is famous because of its very nice boutiques. So this is commonly full of people again, and you see how different the situation it is. As I told you before, the city center is suffering more than other places, especially now that the government is calling again for smart working, you know, so it's like suggesting the offices to promote smart working. And this is a place of offices, and if people, they don't come to work, also like the small bars and restaurants, they don't, of course, get clients. That's also the reason of the protests that you heard about, you know. So
yes,
it's of course all connected, you know, how it is. Like only few people like me, for example, I tried to survive, you know, in those months launching a new cultural project. It's called Art Survival Kit. But you can find it on Instagram if you want, and it offers content about archaeology, art, but it's just a way of survival. So only people who have been able to reinvent themselves, you know, they are kind of like living. See, like that this is also like a very famous gelato place, and there's no one, you know, buying a gelato now. And that
so do
is
I have
very
right?
strange.
You're saying that you're kind of doing virtual tours on
Yes.
Instagram?
Yes, actually, experiences of kind of like every kind, an online tour about Egypt. It's a big project called Once Upon a Time in Egypt. It's like ways to survive, you know, in this period. And it was also like going well to offer tours to the locals. Of course, now that they came to this new decision to close also museums and exhibitions, I really don't know what will be the reaction of the people, if they will be scared, you know, to go out. So we are waiting to understand how people they will react, because I'm sure that from a specific, you know, viewpoint, the people, they don't want to be locked down anymore. But same times they fear, you know, to, of course, be with too many people, like in groups. That's what I'm saying. So it's a very strange time, I have to tell you.
And so where do we find that on Instagram?
On Instagram, you find actually contents of archaeology and art and everything I propose. So like virtual reality experiences. It's of course most of all about the city, about Rome.
Yes.
So like tours and small lessons and webinars. And as I told you, a new online project about ancient Egypt and also Egypt in Rome. So many things.
And that's at Live LIV Italy on Instagram.
That is actually that is my personal project. It's called Art Survival Kit.
Okay, so how do we find you there?
Art Survival Kit. It's
Art
like survival kit.
And what's that?
I basically offers kits to survive with art in this period. That's the reason of the name.
Okay, so one more time.
Yeah.
It's art, survival, and what's the last word?
Kit, like package, kit.
Pizza?
No, kit. It's like a package, a box. It's like art survival kit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I will
look
actually.
all right,
Yes.
look at this now. Wow, there is, that's what, an almost 2,000-year-old building you're walking us up to, right?
Right. You remember it well. Yeah, exactly. This is an ancient pagan temple that still perfectly stands in Rome, built in 2725 BC. So, and this is Egypt in Rome, an obelisk. Something I will talk about in this online project.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And it's famous for its hole in the middle of the dome, the famous oculus. Right.
Correct. Yes, and so for example, that is something that we hope for, that they will leave the churches open, for visiting, because they closed, as I told you, the museums. So hopefully something will remain open. Yeah. So it's actually a very strange time. We had this feeling that everything was back to normal for a while. And then, COVID is back and the spike of contagions is high again. So it's like we are facing a new critical phase.
Well, we all can't wait for life to return to normal. And, Rome it's the eternal city, and there's so much history there. It is incredible. I've only been once, but, I spent a few days and I felt like I could spend a month there and still have so much to learn. It is an incredible place. And we're sure hoping that life gets back to normal in 2021 for you and the people of Rome and for all of us over here.
Thank you. for all of us. Yes, for sure.
Julia, thanks for your time.
It was a pleasure. I'd like also to say something about, I don't want to steal your time. It's just to tell you that actually we have been kept waiting, for new decisions for so long, almost like 1 week. It was a kind of countdown to this new decree. Mm-hmm. That is also what made people really mad, that it was impossible to make plans, for of course, this changing of direction that we are experiencing. So every week we have a new announcement, and that, of course, puts people in crisis, also because a few times it sounds that those decisions that kind of in contrast each other, and so that's why it's different from before. A new musician.
Yeah. There he is, playing his trumpet.
Okay, so I hope actually I made everything clear.
Well, again, we really appreciate your time. I didn't think you were going to give us that much of a a slice of the city, but you gave us a good view, that's for sure. Julia?
And we did actually 2 kilometers together. Ciao. Thank you so
Ciao.
much. Ciao.
Ciao.
See you soon.
Okay.
Ciao.
And there we go. Here on News Now, you don't need a passport to take you around the world. We'll do that for you right here. Thanks to Ron Hoon for giving us that in-depth interview and just seeing how things are going in Italy. And we're hoping for the very best for everybody out in Italy and, of course, right here in America as well. Italy seeing 1.1 million cases confirmed COVID-19 right now. They started their surge, it looks like, the second wave around the middle of October, and it keeps climbing each day, and especially the way that we're seeing it here in America as well. So here's what we have right now coming up for you in News Now from Italy. Now let's go to Washington, D.C. This is a live look right now at a Stop the Steal election rally there, where President Trump supporters are taking over the streets right now of Washington, D.C. We're being told that tomorrow there is actually going to be a big march for President Trump in Washington, D.C. as this Stop the Steal campaign does continue there for President Trump supporters. They're still not buying it right now. That every news outlet has called it for Joe Biden there, as Joe Biden is now president-elect there. But you are seeing supporters there of President Trump saying, you know what, we just don't believe what we saw on election day and night there. So that is the vibe there coming out of Washington, D.C. right now. It is now 1 o'clock out on the East Coast. Hi, everyone. Mike Page here. Welcome as we continue to bring you always these top stories and headlines from across the country. And thank you for being with us here on the Friday edition of News Now from Fox. Now what we'll do is take you out to a live briefing right now from the Joe Biden campaign. They're talking about the transition process for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, as well as getting their cabinet in line there for taking over in January. So what we're going to do, it's still going live right now, but we're going to play it for you in its entirety so you didn't miss anything. You see it right here on News Now from Fox. When there's live events, you know we got you covered right here on News Now from Fox. Let's take you out there to that briefing right here.
Vice President-elect is that they seek to build a diverse team of experts that can confront the crises facing the country on day one of the new administration. So with that, I think we'd love to open up to some questions. Osmo Khalid has a question.
Oh, wow, oh, wow. So, yeah, definitely the audio and not good there at all in the beginning. Let's see. Let's take it live right now and just see if they corrected it. If not, we're not going to be able to stay on this one, obviously.
To rehire them.
All right, so they were able to fix it there. So what we'll do then, since that is live right there, let's just see everybody when they were able to fix it there, and we'll try to get that for you so you don't miss out on too much here.
Those agencies wouldn't function without the thousands of people who've served for decades, is a priority for President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. Exactly how that happens or which personnel will be brought back or asked to come back or the process, I don't have more to preview. I don't know, Johannes, if there's anything more from your end on that particular point.
What I'd say there is, to Jen's point, the state of the federal executive is something that obviously we all have concern about. And what our team has done is take a look agency by agency and from the bottoms up, do an assessment as to what are the priority positions that need to be filled within the 4,000 that a president has the ability to fill in order to do the job of building back better on day one, and in order to meet the demands of President-elect and Vice President-elect's agenda. And in terms of thinking through the actual personnel for those positions, it goes back to something we said at the top. We're on pace to have a robust personnel effort early on in the administration, because we know that there are so many places in the executive that need capacity. And we are prioritizing the same things that we prioritize in terms of hiring for the transition, which is a diverse group of experts that know the jobs that need to be done and are ready to start leading on day one, and that are in many ways embodied, not in terms of specific people, but embodied as a group by the type of people you saw on the agency review teams, folks who really understand these agencies and are able to effectively administer them once they're given a chance.
Our last question goes to Jen Epstein.
This is sort of a piece of what Alexi asked, but you know, are you going to be putting out rules around ethics for the administration, for the White House staff, for members of the president-elect and vice president-elect's family sometime soon? And what will those look like, the transition rules, or will they be different? And should we anticipate that we will see the senior staff of the White House being built out in the coming days? Or is that going to take longer? Since obviously, I think a lot of the reporters on this call understand who a lot of those people are, but are waiting, you know, to hear what their titles will be.
You're eager for some personnel announcements? So I will say that, you know, as I mentioned at the top of this call, there was a little bit of time this week, in addition to getting national security briefings and COVID briefings and announcing his advisory board, and having some public events for the president-elect to spend some time with close advisors, having discussions about personnel. Obviously, that's always a focus of any transition. As you saw yesterday, was it yesterday? Ron Klain, or the day before, Ron Klain was announced as the chief of staff, and he and the president-elect are eager to, you know, get a seniors team and a senior staff finalized and certainly announced in the coming weeks, because they know they have a lot of work to do. I can't give you an exact date or anything. I can just reiterate for you that it's a priority, and we hope to have some updates on that for you soon. And on the ethics piece, you know, we have a robust ethics pledge that is signed by anyone who's working on the transition. And certainly, as we get closer to announcements about personnel for an administration, I would expect we'd have information on that. I don't know if Johannes has anything to add. Any parting thoughts, wisdom for the weekend?
Just appreciate everybody making time, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
All right, that was the limited update there from the Joe Biden campaign, where we're trying to give it to you all in its entirety there, but they had some audio issues, deep audio issues there in the beginning, so weren't able to bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox, everybody. Let's take it now back out to D.C. right here. This is where President Trump supporters are coming together, where there is expected to be a major rally tomorrow in the streets in Washington, D.C. for President Trump. And that is happening tomorrow here as we continue to roll on right here on News Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We got another story here that we want to bring to you. Hi, everyone. Mike Bache here. Thank you again for joining us here today. We're going to take it back out to Fox 10 in Phoenix, where Renee Nelson has a story of a domestic violence survivor and everything that she went through and everything that she had to overcome in her life. Let's bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox.
To AZAM.
Well, 2020 seeing major increases in domestic violence cases, up over 140% from last year. And domestic homicides have more than doubled. Family members taking to social media to honor those victims. 94% are women. And we introduce you to a local woman to shed some light on the common question, why didn't she just leave?
Just wanted to kind of just share my mom's story and also do a tribute to her. A lot of my friends or some of even my family members don't know exactly what has happened with my mom.
A TikTok video tribute to Denise, Venus's mom.
Quite a bit of people messaged me on TikTok. Some of them were saying that they were in a domestic violence relationship that they were trying to get out of.
According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, it's about power and control. But time and time again, many people ask the same question of victims. Why does she allow him to abuse her? What did she do to be abused? And why doesn't she just leave. Author Rachel Lewis Snyder, in her book No Visible Bruises, writes control runs the gamut from access to money to food and transportation, how they dress, clean, cook, or perform sexually, saying victims of this coercive control are like passive hostages in their own homes.
I was shot November 4th, 87, and I was domestic violence. My husband used to hit me. I used to work for a judge who was familiar with domestic violence.
She worked daily on domestic violence cases, but kept quiet about the details of her own.
I can't hide. I can't run. I need to get out of this, but I can't do nothing.
She worked for the Mesa courts, had the support of colleagues and co-workers, law enforcement by her side, but he didn't want to let her go.
He threatened to harm my mom and dad, so I came back. I didn't want nobody else to get hurt.
She filed for divorce, filed for an order of protection.
Still came around, wanted to kiss in my gap, and I told him, no, not this time, Art. I want a divorce. Just let me go. Tell me, if I can have you, nobody will. And pulled out a gun.
He shot her in the head and killed himself. Denise, pregnant, bleeding. She wasn't found until the next day, next to her dead husband. Her daughter Venus, just 2 years old at the time, still by her side.
So she was in a coma for several months. She had to learn how to read and write again. They told her she would never walk again.
Denise is paralyzed on her right side, legally blind and deaf in her right ear.
That moment that she got shot, she made that decision not to leave me with my dad. And to me, like, she gave me a second chance to live because she didn't desert me. She's my hero.
72% of all murder-suicides involve an intimate partner. 94% of the victims, female. Denise's recovery long, and she did eventually graduate from Arizona State University with her bachelor's degree, and now advocates on behalf of victims, giving them advice and hope.
Don't give up and seek help. Don't be afraid to share what is going on.
And Denise is helping us ask better questions of abusers rather than blaming their victims.
And according to the National Association Against Domestic Violence, we are asking the wrong people the wrong questions. And instead of asking women, why don't they just leave? They say we should be asking, why does he abuse her? How do we stop him from abusing her? And why doesn't he just leave? So if you know someone that's experiencing domestic abuse, there is help. You can call the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. Celeste?
Renee, thank you so much. Moving story.
Yeah, what a moving story there indeed there. Thanks for Renee Nelson for that update there on that woman that defied all the odds there and survived that horrible, horrible situation that she was in right now. Okay, let's continue on to bring you the very latest here on News Now from Fox. I'm just getting this update out of Illinois. I want to give that to you. We're expecting a little bit later in the afternoon to get an update on Illinois and the very latest on COVID-19. But here are the numbers that they are reporting right now, and it's a record. Unfortunately, it's the records that you don't want during a pandemic, and it is 15,415 additional cases that Illinois is reporting today there. So that is a new record. Unfortunately, not the records that we want at all right now, and then 27 new deaths, unfortunately, right there. So it looks like just yesterday, the governor there of Illinois really just putting it out there that he is getting close, very close to putting another lockdown on the state. We saw the city, the largest city there in the state there of Illinois, Chicago, saying, you know what, on Monday we're doing a 30-day lockdown. We'll see what J.B. Pritzker has to say if I had to guess, we all know what's going to be happening there to Illinois. It looks like they are headed for another statewide lockdown, as we're seeing that new record there, 15,415 being reported right there. So right now we're going to take a quick break. For some of you here on News Now from Fox, when we come back, we are going to take it out to Florida. One of our sister stations out there has an interview with Senator Marco Rubio. So stay right here with us on News Now. A live look at the White House. We're just getting started for you. We're just warming up here, folks. We got coverage from across the country. We're going to bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox.
Well, this is Craig Patrick with Fox 13 News Tampa Bay. Senator Marco Rubio, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the COVID relief and stimulus discussions. Just before the election, we were at $500 billion in the Senate. President Trump and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin were looking at around $1.9 trillion. The House say $2.2 trillion. Would you embrace a compromise? What would it be? Would you go with something somewhere between what the president has called for in the House, or would that be cost prohibitive?
Look, I think that I wish we didn't have to spend all this money. I really do. And by the way, some of that money is money that's already been approved and just wasn't spent, so it's being reappropriated. But the bottom line is, I'm willing to be very flexible and very accommodating, because I know that to pass a law, we've got to do something that Democrats will support in the House and that the president will sign. My goal is to get something done. But here's what I'm saying. If we can't agree on all these other things that they're trying to do, then we can't agree on those things for now. Then we can work on those things. But right now, in my view, the most urgent economic need we have is another round of assistance for small business. If we don't help small businesses, we are going to have a small business catastrophe here over the next few months. We just are. These businesses are barely holding on. As these numbers begin to surge once again, sadly, you're going to see around the country and potentially in the state new shutdown orders. I hope not, but that could happen. But even if you don't, you're going to have people afraid to go out. You're going to have people afraid to go spend or go somewhere. And the result is going to be not just that those businesses this time are going to vanish for good. You have a bunch of empty storefronts, so that's going to create a cataclysm. You're going to lose thousands of jobs. We cannot let that happen. We just cannot let that happen. It's reckless. It's crazy. We have to act on it.
We're heading into a lame duck session. We are in a lame duck session now. They call it that for a reason. Do you think there is any chance something could pass in the next couple of weeks? If not, what's the timetable?
Well, we're going to try. Look, I've already tried twice, and each time it gets blocked because we need unanimous consent or because we need the votes of 60 senators. We're going to try again. And when it comes to small business, by the way, there's no dispute. I mean, we can work out. I can tell you that it would take us less than a day to work with Nydia Velázquez, who's the chairman in the House, and my counterpart, Democrat Senator Cardin of Maryland in the Senate, and we can get something done. We're not far apart. The issue here is not what's in the bill. The issue here is that the Speaker and Senator Schumer have said we either spend everything they want, $2 trillion, or we do nothing at all. They're not interested in just doing a small business only bill. And I just do not understand that. Why can't we just do the things we agree on? Why are they taking this position that either we do everything or we do nothing? Either we help everyone or we help no one. It doesn't make any sense. I want to help everyone too, but let's start by helping the people we've already agreed on how to help.
We have a situation where both sides agree we have to spend more money we don't have, but we're now in a $27 trillion national debt. The deficit has soared beyond $3 trillion. Once we get past this, how will we reduce the deficit and eventually the national debt? How much time do we have before the debt crisis becomes simply too much to handle?
Well, let me just say this. This is one of those unique situations where if we actually don't do something, the deficit and the debt are going to grow even larger because our tax collections are going to decline. That when people go out of business, when people aren't making money because they're unemployed, they're not paying income tax. When businesses go out of business, they're not employing people, so they have jobs. So that's the reality. We're actually going to cost ourselves money if we don't rescue the economy. The debt is a serious problem in this country, and it has to be addressed. And we have to look at the permanent spending programs. You know, the majority of the money that Congress spends every year is not on the things that people, it's not on foreign aid. It's not on, the welfare programs and food stamps. The majority of the money is on programs that have mandatory spending built in. And those programs need to be reformed so that they can survive in the long term, so that they're on a sustainable long-term path. I'm a huge supporter of Medicare and Social Security. I cannot imagine what my parents' life would have been like in the last years of their life had they not had Medicare. had they not had Social Security. I want to save those programs, but that's going to mean some small reforms, nothing catastrophic for younger workers 40 years down the road. And if we do that, then we put the spending on a sustainable path, and you combine that with economic growth and good paying jobs for Americans, and you begin to bring that debt to a manageable level that we can afford. But there just hasn't been the interest or the political willingness in Washington to deal with that under Republicans or Democrats, to be fair.
As a matter of principle, should public schools that offer remote instruction due to the pandemic continue to offer it next semester as cases and community transmission continue to rise here in Florida, certainly other states, especially for households that have vulnerable family members in it?
Yeah, look, I'm going to leave local decisions like that to school board. So I'll just answer your question as a parent. And that is this: if you have a home where someone in your home has conditions that predispose them to a very adverse outcome, I think that option should be available to you to be able to go to school online. If you're a teacher that has those conditions or someone as well. But at the same time, we need to understand that for a working parent, it is impossible to go back to work and leave your 9-year-old in front of a computer all day. So we have to be able to accommodate for that. And I do think there are ways we can make schools safer. We can't make anything 100%. We are mitigating against risk here. I think right now, as I know, there have been rapid tests that have been provided to the Department of Education in Tallahassee and being dispersed to school districts. I think that'll help us identify cases early and prevent broader outbreaks. So there are things that can be done to make it safer. And there has to be options available for people for whom the risk is simply too high. That's my personal view. And if something Washington can do to help them with that endeavor, I'd certainly be open to it. But I think those decisions belong to the state and particularly the school boards, because parents can advocate directly to them as opposed to having to try to reach a member of Congress or the White House.
Federal election managers just stated this was the most secure election in our history. As the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, do you know of anything, classified or not, I know it's classified, you couldn't say, to substantiate any claims of widespread fraud?
Well, I think it's important to separate those two things, not to say that I have evidence of fraud, but to separate those two things. Fraud is one thing. That's, wrongdoing on the part of someone domestically and so forth. What that agency was looking for was foreign interference. So the Russians hack a computer system, that the Chinese get into someone's database and alter voter registration. And there's zero evidence that that happened. And that, frankly, credit goes to the Trump administration and the millions of dollars and years they spent building up that capacity. That's true. On the issue that you're referring to, which is the broader elections, we have a system of laws in this country and for how elections are conducted. And so initially, the counties and the states put out the unofficial numbers on election evening, and then they continue to count the legal votes, military votes, absentee ballots that came in before the deadline and so forth. If the elections are close, they do a recount. They're auditing all of these results, looking for technical glitches and irregularities and so forth, and then they certify the results of the election. And that happens in every race. Now, if the race is not close, you stop pressing the refresh button on the numbers. But I guarantee you, if you took a screenshot of virtually any race in the country on election night and took a screenshot of it now, the numbers have changed because of that process. And usually it makes no difference. If someone has evidence of fraud or wrongdoing, then they have a right both to argue that before canvassing boards, but also to take it to court. All of this comes with deadlines. And when it comes to the presidential race, the deadlines are set in state law by the time of certification, and ultimately the Electoral College, which this year meets on December 14th. So none of this goes on indefinitely. It's all based on the law, not opinion. It's all based on evidence. And if someone has a claim like the president does, he has a legal right to pursue it. He can either prove it or he can't. And by starting next week, you're going to start to see states certifying their election results. And on the 14th, the Electoral College will meet and elect the president.
Have you, in your capacity, seen any credible evidence of widespread fraud?
No, but to be fair, I don't live in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia. So I wouldn't look. I think by and large that is going to have to be something that is going to have to be presented as evidence before a judge. You're going to have to convince a judge or judges, if it goes, I'm sure it'll be appealed. You have to convince them not just that the evidence is real, but also that it was enough to overturn or impact the outcome of an election. And that's why we have laws, and that's where our confidence comes from. But we are not at a point now where either what I say or what they say in the media or what any candidate says is going to get the kind of widespread public confidence that our elections require. That's the bedrock of our republic. So my argument is these things will not go on indefinitely. Deadlines are set in law. A process exists for all of this to be flushed out. Let that process work. Let it all come together. To be fair, frankly, for those out there that are heads are exploding, that's sort of the approach that Joe Biden has taken. He's not out there talking about this every day. He's moving forward on what he believes is going to be his transition. And so all these things are going to happen. They're all set in law.
Based on where we are right now, should Biden be granted the federal resources provided by law to facilitate his transition and receive the presidential daily briefing?
Yes, because I don't think that in any way that prejudices the president's claims. Let's say that Donald Trump is ultimately able to prove that there was fraud in these states, and as a result, the result of the race change, allowing him access to Biden to these things do nothing. Let's say he's not successful, however, and the impact could be real, because especially on national security, it's a problem. You know, a new president, you have some time, months if you want, or even years to kind of figure out what the right tax rate should be, what your policy should be on this, that, or the other. But on national security, your adversaries don't sit around waiting for you to get caught up on things. And so, I do think it would benefit the country to give him access at a minimum to the intelligence he was receiving as the Democratic nominee. And there's no harm in giving him access to the presidential daily brief so his team can be prepared if eventually he wins the Electoral College vote and becomes elected president, as the initial results indicate will happen.
Florida just weathered Tropical Storm Eta twice, unusually late in the season. It's been a very, very busy season. Do you tie this unusual storm season to man-made climate change or happenstance? And if you tie it to climate change, what specifically can be done in Congress to address it?
Well, let me just say, and I think scientists agree, you don't tie any specific storm to climate change. Hurricanes have existed and have been going on for a long time. We know that warming temperatures in the oceans are one of the contributors, not just to storms, but to stronger storms. And we know that temperatures are rising. There's a difference between the people. I don't think you can deny the climate is changing. The climate, by the way, is always changing, and we're entering a warming pattern. And then there's a secondary argument of what you can do about it. And in my view, I think there are two things you can do about it. Number one is you have to mitigate against it, because no matter what you do, some of these changes and their impact are already baked in. In essence, they're going to happen. And then the second is, what can we do to the extent that man is contributing to that to reverse it? And I do think that the advances that we make in technology and research and innovation will allow us to do more about that in ways that are not destructive to the economy. In essence, I don't believe you have to take hundreds of thousands of Americans that are employed in the energy sector, as an example, and suddenly throw them out on the street with no jobs in order to address this. But that's going to require the sort of advances and investment in technology and innovation to bring us there. Some of it already happening. In the better part, in about 10 or 15 years, it's projected the majority of the automobiles on the road will be powered by batteries, not by combustible engine. That's the direction that we're headed already. We need to begin to adjust to that. But that's in America and the developed countries. That doesn't change what China is putting into the air. It doesn't change what India is putting into the air. So this is a global issue. America is not a planet.
Senator Rubio, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And live look right now at the White House, just getting this news in right now that coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern, everybody, 4 o'clock Eastern, President Trump will make an address to the nation at the Rose Garden. Beautiful day there in Washington, D.C., so why not use the Rose Garden and make your speech there. President Trump will be talking 4 o'clock Eastern, and of course, we'll have that for you right here on News Now from Fox. You won't miss anything if you're with us for all of the days. We show everything in its entirety. From the very beginning, we got you covered right here on News Now from Fox. So be on the lookout for that. 4 o'clock Eastern, President Trump will be making a statement, and we're going to bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox. All right, let's. Some of you are going to take a quick 2-minute break. Don't worry, when you come back, we'll still have coverage flowing for you right here on News Now from Fox. And thanks to everyone for, if you didn't go to a break, you are continuing to watch the White House right now on this very, very beautiful sunny day there in Washington, D.C. It was rainy earlier in the week there, but now everything has really Really got it much better. All right, let's continue to give you some updates on COVID-19 related right now. Let's go out to, once again, our Fox 10 Phoenix in Arizona, talking to a doctor here.
Wrapping up the week, we get perspectives on how COVID-19 is affecting Arizona's hospitals. Sorry for the confusion there, Dr. Ross Goldberg. Always good to see you. President of the Arizona Medical Association and District Medical Group, Vice Chair of Surgery. Dr. Goldberg, let's start with the schools, shall we? In your medical opinion, and I don't want to get into policy because I know all the districts are the ones who make these decisions. Is it safe to have our kids in schools with the numbers that we've been seeing?
Well, good morning as always. And we talked about this before, right? We need to be adapting to what the data shows us. As numbers go up, we have to be careful about having large groups congregate, even with all the social distancing and mask wearing and hand washing. So I think, again, you want to use the data to guide you on what you need to do. I have no problem with school districts looking at their data, being concerned, and altering their plans based on what they're seeing with the numbers.
So, I mean, how many documented cases, and I know it's something like 200, I'll give you the number. So 200 documented cases actually happening at the schools. So are the schools the cause, or are the schools just a worry? I mean, it seems like a very small number.
The data shows you don't need a large number to cause a lot of spread. I forget the actual numbers, but it really just takes a single person to have a large spread of the virus if we're not following the requests of the social distancing and the mask wearing. So I would not focus so much on a number in a particular place, but the overall what's going on in the community, what's going on in our hospitals. All of that together guides what we need to do. And I will tell you, the numbers are going up, the hospitalizations are going up. That's what I'm worried about.
One last thing on the schools, and then we'll move forward. I heard a report in the media today, and I wasn't able to look it up myself, but it was a credible media organization saying that there have been more teen school-age suicides this year than COVID deaths, and that number appears to be increasing as well. Is it worth looking at the overall health of these students in terms of mental health and emotional health, as well as the COVID?
Absolutely. And I think that's the one thing we talk about but don't really focus a lot on, which we should, is the mental health to all of this. There is a mental health part of being locked down in your home if you can't go and interact with your friends at school. It's the same for the adults. We have to look at this at the whole person, not just on the disease. So I think it's important to understand what those ramifications are because of what we have to do based on COVID. They're absolutely linked, and we need to make sure we have resources available to address those issues.
All right, I've got 1 minute left and two questions. Number one, quickly, how are your hospitals looking right now?
Our numbers are going up. I cannot emphasize to everyone enough, they need to please follow these directions about mask wearing, social distancing. It's on every single person to help stop another surge. There are no resources across the country available if we have a really massive surge again. We will be on our own most likely. So we really have limited resources. I need everyone to please do their part and protect each other, including themselves.
And last question. I have Dr. Kara Christ coming on in our next hour. If you were going to ask a question of Dr. Christ, what would you ask her right now?
Just again, what's the upcoming strategy? I have asked that of her, and she's always been willing and able to talk. She has a huge job in front of her. I don't envy the position she's in because there's a lot of hard decisions that need to be made. I've commended her ability to really listen to all of our input. And again, just to be flexible with the data. As data changes, we just need to change our strategy.
Dr. Goldberg, always great talking with you. Thank you for all you and your team are doing in our community right now. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us today on AZAM. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right. Wrapping up.
And we continue to bring you the latest right here on News Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We truly appreciate it. We should mention right now, in case you didn't get to hear our latest update coming out of the White House, President Trump will be speaking at 4 o'clock Eastern. He will be delivering an update on Operation Warp Speed from the Rose Garden. That's all about the COVID-19 vaccines. We'll bring that to you here on News Now from Fox when that does get going, everybody here. So keep that in mind. Also, our very own from Fox 10 Phoenix, Matt Galka is reporting that the Trump campaign has retreated their attempt to try and overturn some election results in Arizona as it relates to the presidential race. This is their lawyers this morning in Arizona Since the close of yesterday's hearing, the tabulation of votes statewide has rendered unnecessary a judicial ruling as to the presidential electors. 2 down ballot races, Board of Supervisors District 1 and State Senate District 28 remain at issue as of this time for the filing there. So it doesn't look looks like the Trump campaign lawyers are there giving up there for Arizona there. And we continue to bring you the very latest there. Yep, they did drop the lawsuit there in Arizona seeking review of all ballots cast on Election Day. So that's the big news there from Arizona reporting there, as still multiple lawsuits filed in other states as of this moment. All right, folks, we're going to take another quick 2-minute break for some of you here on News Now. Stay right here with us, because when we come back, you are going to hear an update on what Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said today on possible, if President Trump has some options to navigate if he wants to talk about electors voting for him instead of Joe Biden coming on December 14th for that state certification day for Congress. It's something that you don't want to miss, and we'll have it for you here in just a couple of moments on News Now from Fox. Thanks to all our viewers that continue to watch here with us here on News Now from Fox. You know, we do bring you those events as they're happening worldwide. So thank you again for joining us here today. We truly appreciate it, everyone. Taking out right now to show you just some other feeds that we are getting in right now. This is in Cobb County, Georgia. The ballot counting continues there, and you can see all the different bins they have, Trump, Biden, and everybody else that was on the ballots there, as they are doing a hand recount there in Georgia. We heard that news on Veterans Day, actually. So we continue to always bring you the latest here on News Now from Fox. Stay right here with us. And we continue to roll on right here on News Now from Fox. If you're just joining us here, welcome, as we're taking a look at Cobb County, Georgia, right now on the very latest of the ballot recount. It's a hand recount that you're seeing right there in Georgia as they're taking a look at all the ballots coming through in that county. Hi, everyone. Mike Page here. Thank you so much for joining us here today as we continue to always bring you the latest that's coming across the board. Right now, we're just showing you different feeds that we're getting in right now, because why not? We got it for you. We're showing it to you right here. This is in Washington, D.C., a Stop the Steal rally in honor of President Trump there, where people are saying, hey, wait a minute. The Trump supporters are saying, we just don't believe what we saw there on Election Day. And you can see there are people and getting in the mix right now. So that is something that we will continue to follow, no doubt, for you right here on News Now from Fox, everybody. Looks like there is Biden supporters in the mix there as well. So a little bit of everything right now. And right now, I'm actually going to bring up this segment from our great station in Chicago. Fox 32 always does a great job of sharing their content with us. So we are going to, this really goes in line of what we are seeing right now, talking about Trump supporters. This one is all about the psychology of President Trump supporters. I thought that was an interesting segment, so let's bring that to you here on News Now from Fox.
Well, Biden is, of course, the projected winner of the 2020 election. That said, as you know, President Trump refusing to concede while he pursues legal battles on the election front.
Yeah, and while the president and his lawyers look for solid evidence, his supporters cling to that sliver of hope that he may be able to pull off some kind of miracle that would flip the election. Joining us now to talk more about the psychology of those Trump supporters who refuse to accept defeat is Professor Eli Finkel. He's with Northwestern University. Hey, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, 72 million people voted for this president. In fact, he actually gained more votes this go around compared to 2016. So there are a lot of people this morning, this week, coping with that loss. Why do you think it's so hard for them to move on?
Well, politics no longer is about just the policies we prefer. It's become a core component of our identity. And so when our team loses, it's very painful for us. And it's not just a part of our identity, it's a very moralized part of our identity. The people on the other side aren't just people who disagree with us about politics anymore, they're evil. And it's essential that we defeat them or the country is going to go to hell in a handbasket.
Well, and there is a more extreme aspect to this as well. Trump supporters have described him as God's chaos candidate, a modern King David, a vessel for God. Could it not be argued that some of the phenomenon that is Trumpism is deep-seated and religious in nature?
Well, on both sides, we're seeing a level of commitment to our political side that is very, very close to a religious set of belief. We have, my collaborators and I have called this political sectarianism. It's this idea that we are deeply different from the other people. The other people are highly aversive, bad people, and that there's a deep moral component to these things. So yes, we view the leaders on our side as almost semi-religious type people, and it's true that Trump is an especially clear avatar of that type of tendency. He's worshipped by large swaths of the right.
Professor, for 4 years, these same supporters, they have heard the president attack the media, calling the media fake news, creating a distrust of the media, the same media that they feel attacked the president for 4 years of his presidency, the reason they say he could never get ahead. How much does that play into the fact that they won't accept the projections from the news outlets?
I mean, that's a huge part of the ballgame. In the broadcast news era, we had somebody like a Walter Cronkite who could talk to all of America. And these days, that's largely gone. There's nobody anymore nobody in the media anymore who can actually communicate effectively with both the right and the left. And so we have a situation where we believe very different stories about what our country is and what the fairness of the electoral process was. And we find ourselves having to depend on media outlets. We can't know everything ourselves. And so we decide in advance which group we trust, which group we don't trust. And that group tells us information, and then we just believe what they tell us.
Hey, Professor, we're out of time, but real quick, short answer here. A lot of people who don't want to take their ball and go home may be missing out on the fact that he's talking about maybe launching his own news network. The impact of Donald Trump is going to extend far beyond January the 20th, will it not?
Yes, absolutely. He's going to be a major player in the political scene, regardless of whether he's in office.
What do you tell the people who have experienced this defeat and, they are having a hard time moving forward, kind of like relationships that don't work out and somebody loses? What kind of exercise or homework would you give them to focus on something positive today?
I think for all of us, it's a reminder that this is how democracy works. Our side wins sometimes, our side loses sometimes. You want a democracy to have a robust debate about ideas, and the democracy depends fundamentally on the losing team being willing to say, we lost this one, we're going to regroup, we're going to battle again for the next election. And that's what I would encourage people on the right to say regarding the president, and people on the left regarding the Senate.
Northwestern Professor Eli Finkel, thank you so much for your expertise and knowledge. Really interesting conversation. Appreciate your time. Biden is, of course.
All right. And special thanks to Fox 32 in Chicago for giving us that interview. I should also mention right now, just moments ago, President Trump did tweet out, I want to read this to you because it just came down the pipes here. Heartwarming to see all of the tremendous support out there, especially the organic rallies that are springing up all over the country, including a big one on Saturday in D.C. I may even try to stop by and say hello. This election was rigged from Dominion all the way up and down there. Dominion is a election counting software there that President Trump says was rigged. There, at this moment, there hasn't been any clear evidence of that right there, but we wanted to bring you that tweet that just happened moments ago for President Trump right there. So we're keeping an eye on everything that is happening across the board, including in at the White House. I should mention, I'm just going to keep on repeating this, everybody, because we are going to hear from President Trump at 4 p.m. Eastern at the Rose Garden. Bringing that to you right here on News Now from Fox as it happens. So be on the lookout for that. All right, I do have another story that a lot of people really telling me about this one, and I had to look it up, and yep, that was on Twitter. So this is a big event that is being reported by Fox News' Jackie Heinrich, talking about the passable path forward for President Trump. And I'm going to show you some of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, because it has to do about her as well. So this is being reported there from Jackie Heinrich from Fox News. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is armed with a nuclear option if President Trump attempts to steal the election through an electoral college play. She says there's no light at the end of the tunnel for President Trump in the House if he thinks he can convince GOP legislatures to deny Biden electors. Pelosi will consider denying Republicans on the same ballot from being seated. She holds the ace card, a Dem source tells Jackie Heinrich. Because state governments formally certify election results and send electors to the Electoral College meeting, President Trump and his allies have engaged in several lawsuits aimed at blocking secretaries of state in contested swing states from certifying the results. Republican-controlled legislatures in this scenario could appoint pro-Trump electors to the Electoral College, potentially upending President-elect Biden's projected win. Donald Trump Jr. has promoted this idea. In this case, Nancy Pelosi has the final play, according to a Democratic source speaking on background. If Republicans mess with electors, one option that she is considering is simply not seating Republican members of Congress at the meeting of the Electoral College. The House retains the right to decide who is seated, and as recently as 2018, Pelosi refused to seat Republican Mark Harris, whose lead was contested after North Carolina officials discovered huge numbers of absentee ballots were never returned. The North Carolina State Board of Elections ordered a new contest, and Harris withdrew, citing medical reasons. An operative on Harris's campaign was later revealed to have financed the election fraud operation. Biden attorneys dispute the legality of such an electoral college play if it comes to that, saying that's not consistent with the Constitution and that will never happen. Bob Bauer said that's another bit of, call it what you will, puffery propaganda that's being put on by the Trump side. Again, it's very easy to establish that this isn't true and won't happen there. But that is just something to see right there. So we had to bring that to you once again. That was Twitter update there from Jackie Heinrich, Fox News correspondent, giving us that update. A lot of people wanted to know about that. They said, Mike, will you say it? And we did bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox, everybody, as we continue to roll on, bringing you always the very latest right here. Thank you so much again for joining us on this really busy Friday. And it's going to get busier in a couple of hours, no doubt about that, because we will have President Trump a little bit later. We will show you his full address at the Rose Garden talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. We'll bring that to you in its entirety right here on News Now from Fox. And we're also waiting for a major update in Illinois. The governor, J.B. Pritzker, is once again going to be giving an update. And that's not a good day for Illinois once again when it's talking about COVID-19. They saw another record. The records that they just don't want to have. There are 15,000 new cases there in the land of Lincoln, and we will be getting an update there. It looks like they're getting very close to a state lockdown there once again. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for you, on everything that is happening. Live events pop up. You know I got you right here on News Now from Fox, everybody. Live look right now. Cobb County, Georgia, in the Peach State, doing a hand recount there. How will it all shake out at the end? We will wait and see there. It looks like November 20th is their deadline, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye on all of that and much, much more right here on News Now from Fox. Some of you are going to take a quick break. Stay right here with us. We're not going anywhere. 2 more minutes, and we got more coverage for you right here on News Now from Fox. Thank you. Continuing to join us right here on News Now from Fox. We truly appreciate it, everybody. As we continue to roll on here, I'm your host, Mike Page. Thank you so much for joining us here today across the board. We got some other COVID-19 updates that we want to bring to you from our sister stations around the country.
Fox 5 Health News and new studies pointing to the need for frequent COVID testing. Researchers say that even daily temperature checks and symptom reporting are not enough. Joining us now is Dr. Purvy Parikh of NYU Langone Health. Thanks so much for being with us today, Doctor. Okay, so what are they actually suggesting? Should we be taking COVID tests every single day?
Right. So, two studies that came out of the Navy showed that COVID testing is actually much more reliable in containing the spread versus symptoms or the temperature checks or the screening questions. The first study, looked at all these Navy recruits that came in. They were masking the whole time. They only had one roommate, sanitizing toilets, training outdoors, yet only 1% of the recruits infected majority of their platoon members, their roommates, and even though they were strictly following all the protocols. So it just goes to show that that's the only way to really see the extent of it is frequent testing, because majority of them were asymptomatic.
Sure.
Similarly, they saw that on the cruise ship, the USS Theodore, also a Navy study, out of their 5,000 members, 1,200 actually tested positive. And again, majority of those were asymptomatic. But it's hard to know who will be asymptomatic and who will get sick because they had a death as well. And 23 of them were even sick enough to be hospitalized. So again, testing seems to be the only reliable way to contain the spread.
Yeah, I remember when it spread through those military ships so fast.
Yes.
It was brutal back in the spring. All right, Dr. Purvy Parikh, we are out of time, but we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Once again, wreaking havoc across the state, and healthcare workers are bracing for another huge wave of cases coming in. So this morning we are talking to Dr. Chris Dale from Swedish Medical Center on what's happening in our hospitals and what we can really do to stop the spread and get back to normal as soon as possible. Good morning, Doctor.
Hey, good morning, Allie.
Glad to have you here this morning. So, talking about our levels that we're seeing right now, are we at the same level we were back in March? Is this the second wave? I know we were talking about the fall surge, but where are we right now?
Well, surfing it maybe. For Swedish in particular, back in the springtime, we had about 120 cases of COVID or people under investigation in the hospital at our peak. And a week ago, we had 15 people. And then as of this morning, we're up to 43. So that rise has been pretty significant and coming on pretty quick.
So what kind of impact is this really going to have on our hospitals, Dr. Dale? Are we seeing any impacts yet?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the hospitals in Washington State and up and down the I-5 corridor were very constrained in terms of ICU staffing. And all of us are, I think, working hard together to make sure that we're able to meet the care needs of our community. But I think Governor Inslee was spot on yesterday when he talked about the need to socially distance from one another during this Thanksgiving time, and to mask up and to do the things that we know that can prevent the spread of the virus.
So speaking of some of those things, it feels like COVID really can get out of control here. So with the governor's recommendations in place, what do you think as a doctor that we can do right now?
Well, I think I want to be done with the virus, right? But it doesn't seem like it wants to be done with us. And just like you were talking about half a second ago, when we have a vaccine and it's widely available, that'll be a different day. But now it's the same thing as it has been. I mean, unfortunately, it's wearing a mask when you're out in public. It's limiting your physical contact with other people outside your household. So we're seeing the spike here, 10-ish days after Halloween. And I'm a little bit nervous that if people gather together during Thanksgiving or, other winter holidays that are coming up, what we're going to see. So it's wear a mask, it's physically distance, it's wash your hands. Those are the key three things.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Chris Dale from Swedish Medical Center this morning. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully we don't see another surge in cases after the holiday.
So California and Texas, now the two states in the nation to have 1 million known coronavirus cases, and the U.S. as a whole has more than 10 million infections. This comes as Chicago and Detroit plan for another round of strict lockdowns as cases have doubled there in the last few weeks. This comes as the U.S. is breaking records for the number of hospitalizations during the pandemic, and some getting low on bed space. And in some places, coroners are using mobile morgues at this point. It's getting bad again nationwide with this fall surge that we're seeing. This morning, we're talking with Dr. Stephen Morris from UW Medicine to get some insight on how our local hospitals are coping right now. Dr. Morris, good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well, Bill.
So how would you say you're doing right now? How's your hospital dealing with beds filling up right now?
At the moment, our hospitals are doing well. We are much better prepared than we were for the first surge in the spring. Seattle's a bit blessed, and Washington State's a bit blessed in that we have very strong public health infrastructure. Our hospitals cooperate with one another, and we have a population that also cooperates and follows the rules. So our surge hasn't been quite as bad as it has been in other places.
Well, that's really good to hear. So, obviously the frontline workers are the ones that we talk about so often. How are they dealing with it right now? I know that there was a shortage of PPE nationally early on in the pandemic. How's it going now?
Again, we're doing quite a bit better than we were initially. Our PPE stocks are fine at the moment, and I anticipate that they'll continue to be in good shape. Everybody has a system for augmenting what they have, and when things get bad, cleaning those in a safe manner to reuse. Additionally, I think what's happening across the country is being mirrored in the healthcare setting, which is that people are suffering from COVID fatigue, as we call it. So they're having a hard time keeping up with the stress and the strain of managing this disease over time and managing the restrictions, both outside the hospital and with their families and in public, as well as a little bit to a smaller extent in the hospital. But reinforcement, we're able to get those standards back up as needed.
Are you seeing some of that fatigue among the frontline workers there, the doctors and the nurses and the staff there that's dealing with this on the daily?
Well, I think it happened previously, but I think with this surge occurring right now, that's at the hospital level, that's largely gone away. The number of cases that have been transmitted within hospitals in other places, other parts of the country, was a bit of a wake-up call for everyone to be more vigilant about their management of patients overall within the hospitals. So I think at this point, everyone's ability to manage is at the highest level possible.
Okay, so you probably heard the governor's message with his wife yesterday, talking about people really needing to be cautious as we head into the holiday season. What would you recommend to folks planning, holiday get-togethers and whatnot?
I think part of the surge we're seeing now is also related to the colder weather and people coming inside. as well as the COVID fatigue and people getting together, as I mentioned. But I think the holidays are a special time where we have to be more vigilant, because it's easier to say that this is our time of the year to see family when we don't normally see them. But we have to manage it appropriately, and we have to make sure that we keep to our small groups, just keep to our immediate family, avoid the travel, avoid the excess being out in public, and certainly avoid the large groups that are the normal events for the holidays.
Stephen Morris, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. My pleasure.
And we continue to roll on here for you on News Now from Fox. Some of you on Fox 10 Extra, we just have a little bit of moment left with you. We want to take you to this report on holiday shopping warnings online. Take a look.
Online shoppers, beware. A new report from the Better Business Bureau has found those .com deals can be a breeding ground for fraud.
It wasn't a situation where they were actively shopping for something.
Monica Horton is the spokesperson for the BBB of North Central Texas. The study by the national group found Facebook ads took the top spot of online platforms reported by consumers who lost cash.
Our research found that the top motivating factor for consumers who lost money was price.
What's worse, the most at risk are those who aren't even actively shopping. They just came across something on their feed and decided to try it out. The biggest fool factors? Fancy photos and websites that look legit.
Consumers need to know that professional photos do not mean that it is a real offer.
The study also warns scammers have a new trick, sending fake tracking numbers to buyers.
We have seen situations where the consumer disputed the charges with the credit card company. Credit card company contacts the retailer provides fake tracking information, so then the dispute is closed.
Best practices? Research ads. A simple image search on Google will tell you if product pictures are original. Shop only on secure sites.
You want to make sure that the website that you're on begins with HTTPS and not just HTTP.
And when it is time for checkout, pay with a credit card. The study found paying with plastic provides the most protection. The worst way to pay, says the report, cash apps like Zelle. And finally, if you come across an item you just can't stand to skip, make sure the seller lists contact information.
The company should be advertising an address, phone number, another means of contact besides just online.
And be sure to test it before you buy so your sale doesn't become the next statistic. Also important to note about those statistics, a lot of these folks are not first-time buyers. They are seasoned internet shoppers. So if you think you can't be fooled, think again. You can read the full report from the BBB right now, facebook.com/SaveMeSteve.
All right, we continue to roll on right here for you on News Now from Fox. I do want to show you, for those of you that didn't get to see it earlier today, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi making remarks, and then, oh yeah, we do have President Trump coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern. We will have that for you in its entirety when we get it for you right here on News Now from Fox.
And care for our veterans and their families. I also had the privilege of participating in the work of Elizabeth Dole for the observance that she had on Veterans Day this year. It was in cars at the Kennedy Center, and some of us were virtual, but Senator Elizabeth Dole has been an angel for our veterans, and I was honored to be asked by her to join Senator John McCain and others to be part of the initiative to honor our hidden heroes, the families that care for our veterans. Thank you, Elizabeth Dole, for all of that. Again, as we honor the needs of veterans in every area, we must recognize that it's not just the VA that meets their needs. It's the role that veteran small businesses play, and we want more opportunity for that. Many of our veterans rely on Medicaid. They constantly come to us and say that the Medicaid piece is important to their lives, food stamps, and housing assistance. So many of the things that we have actually in the coronavirus bill, the HEROES bill, affect our veterans. Yesterday, on a separate associated with this, yesterday, as you're probably aware, Leader Schumer and I had a call with President-elect Joe Biden. We'll stay in close touch in the coming days. We spoke about the intensifying pandemic and the economic crisis accompanying it, and about the urgent need for Congress to pass a bipartisan bill in the lame duck session that provides resources to fight the pandemic and relief for working families and small businesses, support for state and local governments to keep the frontline workers on the payroll, and engage expanded unemployment insurance and affordable health care for families. The health care piece, of course, being essential. At the same time, as you know, earlier in the week, the administration was, instead of crushing the virus, trying to crush the Affordable Care Act. And of course, we were very pleased at the presentations that were made in support of the Affordable Care Act in the courts. But on our call, back to our call, that wasn't on our call, we also discussed the need for bipartisan solutions to create millions of good-paying jobs, including through investments in infrastructure, manufacturing, research and development, and clean energy. Infrastructure legislation has largely not been a partisan issue. We believe this is a good place where we can find common ground. But that is something we can work on now, but as we go into the new Congress. But for now, the two areas of the coronavirus and also to pass an omnibus bill in a bipartisan way. I'm optimistic that that will happen. I'm an appropriator, so I have a good rapport with the appropriators, and I think that left to their own devices, they can get this done, as I've said before. Chairman Shelby and I had this conversation, assuring each other that we want to have a bill. Again, our focus in the Congress now in this lame duck, it continues to be on COVID relief. This is a red alert, all hands on deck. As Chairman Leader Schumer and I discussed yesterday, this is an emergency of the highest magnitude. And yet, our Republican colleagues want to focus elsewhere instead of recognizing as the health emergency, which science has given us a path to crush. Just let's, again, we had worse numbers than even yesterday. The numbers speak very eloquently. 160,000 infections were reported, a horrifying number, following more than a week of over 100,000 infections a day. These levels are 2 times higher than the summer peak. More than 67,000 Americans are hospitalized with COVID, a new record threatening overwhelming our hospitals in our rural areas too. Over 10 million people have been infected, over 10 million people. 240,000 Americans have died because of this pandemic. According to a news report this morning, which I'm sure you have all seen, it was reported that more than 130 Secret Service agents are infected or quarantining in the wake of Trump's reckless campaign schedule. 130 Secret Service agents. Meanwhile, on the economic front, over 20 million Americans are on unemployment. America has 1 million fewer teachers and education jobs compared to a year ago, and that has an impact on our children's education. 8 million people have fallen into poverty. 17 million children are food insecure. There's no time to waste. We must save lives and livelihoods. And yet, Republicans in Congress continue their tactics of delay, distort, and deny, which has led to deaths. Now they're trying to distract and divide the country as they refuse to accept the election results. The election is over. Joe Biden is the president-elect, elected with a mandate of over 78 million votes. But don't take it from me. The Elections Infrastructure Government Coordinating Council and the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Executive Committees said in their joint statement, this November 3rd election was the most secure in American history. There is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. It went on to say, while we know there are many unfounded claims and opportunities for misinformation and the process of our elections, we can assure you that we have the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of our elections, and you should too. The Republicans shamefully pretending otherwise are doing serious damage to our American democracy here and as viewed throughout the world, and making it even harder to address the massive health and economic crises facing America right now. The longer the Republicans keep up the charade, the further out of control the COVID crisis will spiral and more endangered Americans will be. I urge our Republicans to accept the facts, acknowledge the crisis, and immediately come to the table to work on COVID relief. Again, this takes place at a time where there's a vaccine on the horizon, giving people hope. But that should also give them encouragement to listen to science on the way to the vaccine. Testing, tracing, treatment, mask wearing, isolation, separation, sanitation, all of those things. Because the sooner we do that, and the sooner we have a vaccine, the sooner we crush the virus. I hope it would be an incentive for people to follow science all the way to the vaccine. And in that score, in our COVID bill, we do have sufficient fund, a great deal of funding for the vaccine. The development, as I said yesterday, should be taken up under the defense bill. I just don't know why the president is not doing that. And then also, we want to make sure that when the vaccine occurs, there will be sufficient funding and sufficient vaccine to reach everyone in our country, as well as in the world, because as we all know, unless we're all secure, none of us is. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Speaker Pelosi, a record number of...
All right, folks, that was Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi from earlier today, but we do have some breaking news that we want to get to. We're going to take you out to Connecticut. Looks like at any moment right now we are going to be getting an update on that terrible tragedy that happened at the VA Medical Center in West Haven, Connecticut. 2 people died there in a steam explosion, and we're going to bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox. When there's live events, we got you covered. Always check out newsnowfox.com as well. Here we go with the latest update there on that terrible tragedy in Connecticut.
Really rough day for all of our employees and staff here. Out of the 3,500 dedicated employees, this has really been a hard one. So it is with great sorrow that I share that 2 deaths tragically occurred today as a result of an explosion in the basement of an outer building at the West Haven campus. This occurred at approximately 8 a.m. and it was a steam line that was being replaced. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of the 2 victims. So there was 2 individuals that are deceased. There were 3 that suffered minor injuries. And then there were no other injuries outside of that we know of. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the multifaceted response from the state, from our state police, from everyone. Chief O'Brien is here as well from the city of West Haven. It is times like this that we come together as stakeholders to make sure that we're taking care of everyone, and so I really appreciate what you all have done. While I can't tell you the names right now, as we're not releasing them, of the 2 individuals who are deceased, I will tell you a story. Okay? One of those employees, right, was 1 employee and 1 contractor. One of those employees was a Navy veteran. Today, as I sat there on probably one of the hardest moments of my VA career, and told his loved one that he was deceased, it was so difficult. But I will tell you what she said back to me is that this is the reason that he came in. As a veteran, he wanted to take care of fellow veterans. He wanted to give back to those men and women who fought so hard. And it's moments like that that really tear at your heart and tear at your soul. And so I really appreciate you keeping their thoughts and hopes and prayers because they are certainly going through a rough time. So I lastly will tell you that we are cooperating with everyone during this investigation. So it is multifaceted, as I had mentioned. And so once we have more information, we will be able to release that. So that being said, before we take questions, I do want to turn it over to my boss, Mr. Ryan Lilly, who is our network director for the Veterans Integrated Service Network 1.
Thank you, Al. This is a really sad day for all of us in VA New England. This campus is part of a broader regional healthcare system, and we often refer to ourselves as a family. And it's really hard when you lose someone in your family. So I'm here to reiterate what Al said about our sympathies for the individuals and the families involved in this tragic, what seems like an accident, and to pledge the full resources of the regional system in investigating what happened and making sure that it doesn't happen again. So thank you all for being here. I think Senator Blumenthal would like to also say a few words.
Thank you. This is a profoundly sad and tragic day for everyone in Connecticut and everyone around the country who cares about veterans. I want to thank our state police, our firefighters, everyone involved in responding to this emergency and for doing the initial investigative work. You have our thanks. I want to thank every single man and woman who works in this facility and who works throughout the VA. Today's tragedy is a reminder of how enormously valuable the VA's mission is and how dedicated the men and women who serve that mission are. The fact of the matter is that a very large proportion, I think about 30% or more, of all VA employees are veterans. And so today is a reminder that our veterans do more than serve in uniform. They come back and they serve in our communities and they give of themselves, and sometimes, as today, they give their lives. This tragedy is especially moving and saddening during a pandemic because the men and women who serve in this facility put themselves at risk. They're frontline workers. They're essential to the mission of protecting other veterans from this pandemic. And we ought to salute and recognize their service literally every day, not just Veterans Day. There's a more important point here, and I've spoken to the chairman of the VA committee. I serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee in the United States Senate and talked to the chairman today, Senator Moran of Kansas, about our redoubling our efforts. It's on Congress to fully fund modernization and rebuilding of VA facilities across the country, most prominently this one. Many of our VA facilities are aging and antiquated. This one is one of them. This facility dates from the 1950s. It has the structure and bones of a 1950s building with a newer shell. But I can tell you, having visited here so many times, this tragedy is only the latest indication that this building is past its sell-by date. It's on the list to be replaced, but it has not yet been reached, and I can pledge that I'm going to redouble my efforts to make sure that construction of a new facility takes place as quickly as possible, because the mechanics that were involved in this repair are an important factor in the tragedy, but we know that its beams, its shell, its surgical facilities, we've been through a lot with this building. And I want to, again, simply thank the medical personnel who labor with an antiquated and aged building and the limitations that it imposes. And with all that said, this facility provides world-class, first-class care to every veteran who comes through its doors. And I salute and thank Al Montoya for his efforts and his team's accomplishments. Let me just close by saying there will be a full investigation. I'll be monitoring it closely. I'll be part of an inquiry in the Veterans Affairs Committee to oversee it, and the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee indicated to me this morning that we will do an investigation if we think it's necessary. But I know that the prompt and professional response of the VA leadership, headed by Al Montoya, will make sure that all the facts are known, that the causes and consequences are fully uncovered. And I thank him in advance for the work that he will do. Our hearts go out to the families of the two men who perished today in repairing a system that unfortunately probably should have been replaced long ago, but it's a clear alarm bell, a wake-up call that we need to do better for our veterans facilities across the country. And it's on Congress to perform that mission. Now I'd like to turn it over to Senator Murphy, my great colleague.
Thank you very much, Senator Blumenthal. Let me add my condolences to the families of those that have been lost. Let me express my deep thanks to everyone on this campus who is grieving, and to all of our first responders who were at that scene and are still at that scene today. Al mentioned to us privately that the maintenance crew here on campus is a tight-knit group. They are going to go through some difficult days and weeks ahead as they deal with this loss, and our hearts and minds are with them. Working at a hospital is dangerous any day of the week, any year. You're putting yourself in contact with potential virus and disease and infection. Working at a hospital in 2020 is particularly dangerous, and every single day the maintenance workers, the nurses, the doctors, the administrative staff who walk into the doors on this campus are putting their safety on the line, the safety of their family on the line in the middle of a pandemic to stand up for all the rest of us. They are heroes. And while you never expect for an accident like this to happen, the fact that it occurs on a hospital campus is yet another reminder of the debt of gratitude that we owe everyone who works in healthcare in any capacity today. I think it's important to note that we don't know what happened. It may be that there is a connection between the age of the facility and what happened today, but we don't know that yet. But what we do know, as Senator Blumenthal said, is that this is an old campus. It should have been replaced long ago, and as a member of the Appropriations Committee, I'll be working with Senator Blumenthal to try to make sure that we have proper investment in this campus and in VAs across the country. I'm grateful as well to have our state delegation here. This is a team effort to support West Haven during the good times. The federal government, the governor's office, and our state delegation, as well as Mayor Rossi and those who serve in local government. But in the difficult times like today, we're standing ready together to step up at the federal, state, and local level to support this team in any way that we can. Let me introduce someone who has ably led our state through a very, very difficult year. Today just makes it a little bit more difficult, our Governor Ned Lamont.
All right, thank you, Chris. Just a few days ago, we were remembering Veterans Day, and here we are at the Veterans Hospital. And I was just struck when I talked to Mr. Montoya. Director Wilkie gave me a call. He'll be here in a couple of days, Director of the VA. They all talked about this like they'd lost a member of the family, as you heard him say. And I feel that way on behalf of the people of Connecticut. It's a tragedy in the middle of a pandemic. I'd like to give a special shout out to the folks in the back of the room, a lot of you who work here, a lot of them whom are nurses. This is a day where our infection rate went up yet again, 6.4%. You know, for a state that's really done everything right, and you've done everything right, and the gentlemen who lost their lives did everything right, and I just urge you to, you know, dust yourself off. We appreciate what you're doing for the Connecticut family, and especially the nurses and docs. We got a lot of work to do, and I know that you're putting in extra time every day. And I can tell you on behalf of the people of Connecticut, we appreciate every ounce of energy you're putting in to put this pandemic behind us. And the two guys who lost their life in that steam blast, a Navy veteran, they were here fighting for your lives as well. And I'm proud of Connecticut, I'm proud of the VA, and the work you guys are all doing on our behalf. And this is an amazing state, and we stand up from tragedies like this and go forward. And with that, I'd really like to introduce Lieutenant Governor Beiswitz, who has some words and thoughts from Rosa DeLauro.
Thank you, Governor. I have a statement from our Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. I pray for those injured and for the families and loved ones of those killed in this morning's explosion. There are no words that will be able to end the grief, but I am here to support those impacted and the entire West Haven community through this heartbreak. I also want to thank the first responders and local officials who were quick to come to the aid of the VA. I was briefed early this morning and continue to be in contact with West Haven VA Director Montoya and his staff. I am here to help and to support the VA in any capacity as they investigate this disaster. I stand ready to ensure that the VA Connecticut healthcare system has the resources they need to complete a thorough investigation and continue operating and serving our community. And I want to add my personal condolences and thanks to the heroes, our first responders, and the healthcare staff here at the VA. And I want to thank our partners in the legislature, Senator Maroney and Representative Borer, who serve on the Veterans Committee. Thank you, Representative DeMassa, Senator Winfield. If I missed anybody else, I can't see you behind your face mask. But know that we will collaborate with our wonderful federal delegation and be sure, and you can be sure that the governor and I will let President-elect Biden know as he makes his transition plans to rebuild our country's infrastructure, that our VA hospitals are top on the list because our veterans deserve that. Thank you so much.
So at this time, I'd like to welcome any questions. There's a mic that's going around, so if you have a question, just please signal.
Can you comment at all on exactly what maintenance work they were doing when this occurred? What were they working on? Was it something that was potentially dangerous?
Sure. So I think what it was a regularly scheduled replacement of a leaky steam pipe. As many of you know, this campus was built in the 40s, 50s. And so it is a constant uphill battle to maintain the infrastructure. And so that was what was occurring today. It is my understanding that that work started around 7:30, at which time it was completed a little bit after 8 o'clock when the line was refilled with steam, and that's when the incident occurred.
Has all these sites been identified in the initial report that might have been all five? Everyone that's involved in this?
So it's my understanding that we have accounted for everyone in that space, yes. I know I personally would have been down at the site since about 8:16 this morning, 8:17. And so I will tell you that our folks have been very diligent in collaboration with the city of West Haven, with the state folks, to really make sure that we scour that entire area.
An initial report that the workers had become trapped and were unable to escape when the explosion happened. Can you confirm that and tell us how they might have become trapped and how they eventually got out?
So I actually cannot confirm that at this point. I'm sure that those details will come out in the investigation if that was the case. What I can confirm is that there were 2 individuals that were deceased, one of which a VA employee and one of which a contractor.
We actually did receive a statement from Mulvaney Mechanical earlier today, and I was curious to know, have they sent any crews here before to the site previously?
So I actually don't have the answer to that question, but I would not be surprised if they hadn't sent other crews to the facility before. I mean, this is a aging infrastructure, right? Our entire healthcare system spans all of Connecticut, and so we do rely on contractors to come to our space to assist us in replacing some of the infrastructure challenges that we have.
Thank you. And then lastly, just another overview of the facility. I'm curious to know how many veterans patients it serves a year. I know it's been built in the 40s and 50s. Also, when was the exterior done?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question there, we actually take care of about 58,000 veterans across the state of Connecticut. So we are just one campus of VA Connecticut healthcare system. We also have a campus up in Newington, as well as 6 community-based outpatient clinics across the state. So in total here, we saw over 1 million visits this last fiscal year, despite the pandemic. So that is one thing to note as well. You know, this is a full-service hospital. Our occupancy this morning was about 84%. And so we are taking care of many of those veterans on a daily basis. Now, to your point about the infrastructure, the outside cladding of the building was replaced. Underneath that is actually the bricks, original bricks of this facility. I believe that those were replaced around the 90s, but we can get that exact date to you.
How powerful was the explosion, and what other damage to the building and the facilities was caused, and what will need to be replaced in light of this?
Sure. So I think it's important to note that this was in an outer building of our campus. So we were very early on able to isolate the steam leak to that area so that we could continue seeing veterans and continue on with our OR schedule and the inpatient work that comes alongside a hospital. So from that perspective, you know, I think that we'll find out more details once the investigation goes through. I'm not a steam engineer. So I couldn't speak to how powerful that was down there, but I'm sure those details will come out.
Just a quick question about the steam line itself, and from that building, what does it serve here? Is it heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, or what services, and were the services interrupted in any way?
So the services were not interrupted hospital-wide. There were pockets, as I mentioned, that we were able to isolate. If you think of this system or this healthcare system here, this campus as a system, rather, right? We do have a boiler plant that feeds the rest of the campus that goes through many of our outer buildings as well as building 1 and 2. Luckily, we were able to isolate it to that one building, to building 22, and a couple of buildings right around there, which allowed us to continue taking care of veterans. So I think the important thing to note to all of our veterans out there, my fellow brothers and sisters in arms, is that we are still continuing to take care of veterans at this time, and I do encourage them to come in for their health care needs.
And Mr. Montoya, would you mind yielding to either state police or West Haven Fire to talk about their challenges?
I don't mind whatsoever, because I think they've been phenomenal partners. So I'll leave it up to the chief or whoever from the state police.
So again, I'll try to do my best to answer any questions that you guys may have. But prior to, I'd just like to, again, on behalf of the state police, all our local, state and federal partners that were involved throughout the aspect of this investigation and moving forward, express our condolences to the victims, their family and friends, as well as the VA family.
Mr. Dorellis, can you talk about how state police is involved if your fire explosion and investigation?
Absolutely. So shortly after 9 a.m. this morning, detectives from the State Police Fire and Explosion Investigative Unit were called out to the campus of the Veterans Affairs Hospital for the explosion. This incident involves multiple agencies to include, but is not limited to, the State of Connecticut Office of the State Fire Marshal's Office, West Haven Fire Marshal's Office, our FEIU, who will be working in conjunction with the ATF to determine the origin and cause of this explosion, as well as a variety of local, state, and federal partners. As confirmed earlier, there were 2 fatalities, unfortunately, and a number of individuals that were injured throughout the course of the investigation. We do know that the remaining individuals that were injured sustained injuries, but however, their injuries don't appear to be life-threatening at this moment. Sir? Based on our understanding, it appears that in addition to the 2 deceased, there were 3 other individuals that were injured.
Where were they taken for care?
Based on my understanding, it appears that they were treated here on scene. In terms of transport to any surrounding agencies, I don't know if they were transported yet. I do not know whether or not they were transported.
They were taken care of here.
Just to confirm, is state police the lead investigative agency, or will the FBI be coming in to there?
So the FBI was on scene. State police, our FEIU, will be working in conjunction with the ATF to determine the origin and cause of the fire, and we'll be providing all our findings to the West Haven Police Department, who will be ultimately investigating the untimely death. So again, we'll just be working, we'll be assisting in that manner. West Haven will be providing any further updates as it pertains to this particular investigation.
Are OSHA regulated on scene as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Could we ask Chief O'Brien a question?
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. Yes,
Chief, can you talk about what your role here, what you encountered, what your team encountered when you arrived, and what your role was in making the area safe?
Yes, our initial arriving units made entry to the building. They secured the scene, and therefore they were able to locate the 2 victims in the area, and they continue multiple searches for anyone else that may have been also in the area. But those searches were negative. We had rumors of multiple victims, but we have confirmed with that the 2 victims that we have are the only ones that were in the area at the time.
Chief, were they deceased when you arrived?
I believe they were, yes.
injured, were they VA employees or part of the contracting team?
I'm not sure who the individuals were. My assumption is they're VA employees, but I don't have that information.
Do you have that information?
Yeah, so I do believe that they were actually 3 of our own VA employees.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Any last questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's the update there. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, as 2 people died in this explosion at the VA Medical Center earlier this morning. We continue to always bring you the latest here on News Now from Fox. Just a reminder now, less than 90 minutes away from President Trump to be speaking at the Rose Garden. He'll be talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. And will he be talking about anything else like election 2020? We'll wait and see. You're going to watch it all unfold live right here on News Now from Fox. You know it's in its entirety. If we're airing it, we're bringing it to you from beginning, middle, end. More News Now from Fox continues, taking a short 2-minute break for some of you. For some of you, you get to stay right here with us. Bonus time. More coverage from our sister stations across the country.
Officials across the country are sounding the alarm, and there's a real concern that the progress that we've made could be wiped out by another coronavirus spike. And while those on the front lines continue to fight and take care of patients, they are urging everyone to stay vigilant. According to this graph by the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, we saw our first spike of coronavirus hospitalizations around late April, early May, a daily count of 1,600 patients. The next big spike was in late June and July with 1,400 patients. And now the numbers are climbing once again.
There might be some cabin fever going on, but it's critical for people to continue to follow the safety guidelines, especially now as we get into the colder months.
As of Thursday, 1,313 people are hospitalized in Virginia receiving treatment for COVID-19. That number up nearly 50 from just the day before. It includes 246 COVID-19 patients in the ICU and 110 patients on a ventilator. But that number in the middle, giving some hope. 22,000 patients have been discharged since April, and that number is going up. And officials say they are prepared when it comes to PPE, ventilators, and hospital beds.
There are essentially 7,000 beds that could be brought to bear if there were a need for that because there were a surge in patients.
At Inova Fairfax, officials say they've learned a lot of lessons from the first coronavirus spike, and they're confident that their hospital capacity is at a manageable level, at least for now, and they're urging patients to not hold back on the medical care that they need.
Understandably, there's a lot of fear. We have demonstrated there's no reason to delay your health care. We have capacity for your needs. We do not want the unintended consequences of waiting too long.
But in Southwest Virginia at Ballot Health, a much different story. Their hospital capacity is reaching a breaking point.
We have had to make some difficult choices. Here recently, we have had to suspend some elective surgeries because we're literally just running out of room. We need those beds. We need that staff for the care of the COVID patients.
Right now, their top priority is staffing.
You can create all the beds that you want, whether they be temporary or permanent, but if you don't have enough hands to take care of those patients, it doesn't help you very much.
We're 9 months into this. They're exhausted. That is a huge worry of mine as an infection prevention officer, is keeping them safe.
And similar to how some hospitals handled the first round of surges, Ballot Health is considering adding tents to hospital parking lots to add more space for their overwhelmed emergency department waiting rooms. Back to you.
This is the sign on the front door of the hotel announcing the closure by Prince George's County government to protect public health and safety, it reads. The hotel manager said she was not authorized to say anything about the closure. A sign and status the few people we met checking out today said they were unaware of.
They didn't tell us that it was closed. No, it ain't closed. Nah.
What, they just ask you to leave or what?
Nah, we leaving because it's checkout time.
Were you planning to check out today or did they ask you to leave?
No, we planned to check out.
Right.
Yep.
Everything was good?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Going to DC to the rally.
Yep.
Any sign in there that says you had to leave today or anything?
No.
No, and they actually let us stay a little longer and not check out at 11.
Walking his dog Bo near the Hampton Inn, National Harbor resident Don McComas says the hotel room parties have been no secret and a nuisance.
I'm not surprised.
Why not?
Well, I mean, we've had issues with partying that's been going on the weekends with all these hotels where parents were dropping off their kids and having parties. So I'm not surprised that, you know, this has been happening. I'm surprised that some of the other hotels haven't been caught also.
Prince George's officials say the Hampton Inn is one of 2 hotels in the county closed because of non-compliance with COVID restrictions, calling the large gatherings at these room parties dangerous, conducting more than 7,000 inspections of businesses since the pandemic began. County officials say the Hampton Inn and Suites here at National Harbor can reopen once they come up with a plan to be in compliance with the county's COVID-19 restrictions. In Oxon Hill, Bob Barnard, Fox 5 Local News.
The D.C. Attorney General's office says gas sold at this gas station and 53 others had a profit margin of 44 cents a gallon before the pandemic. During the pandemic, that skyrocketed to 88 cents a gallon, illegal price gouging, they say.
CPG, during the time of a pandemic, doubled its profit margin, took advantage of consumers in the middle of a pandemic.
That's the headline from a new lawsuit filed by D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine's office. It alleges a Virginia company called Capital Petroleum Group illegally hiked prices during the pandemic. It sold gas at those marked up prices at gas stations across D.C., the lawsuit says. From the Exxon at Porter Street in Cleveland Park to the Shell right up the road in Chevy Chase and dozens of others in all 4 quadrants of the district.
Some businesses are taking advantage of the fact that we don't have as much mobility as we did before, and I think it's unfortunate that they're doing stuff like that.
It's not fair, and I believe that they definitely did it because in an area, get people when it's a panic mode.
Attorneys general in Maryland and Virginia are cracking down on alleged price gouging too. Maryland says it was able to resolve a handful of price gouging cases without having to sue. And Virginia says it's gotten more than 500 consumer complaints, sending 150 demands to businesses that they stop any illegal price gouging. Back here in D.C., the AG's office has sued CPG and a Ward 7 corner shop for allegedly charging $13 for a bottle of bleach. Chief Deputy AG Jason Downs says it's got to stop.
We will protect district consumers, and at a time where district consumers are financially struggling, we will go out of our way to make sure that companies comply with the law, that we will protect district consumers during the time of a pandemic.
The attorney generals in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia say if you think that you're a victim of price gouging, contact their offices. Back to you.
The pandemic has changed the world of shopping. Now, with the holidays just around the corner, small local businesses are doing what they can to get more customers through the door. In Old Town Alexandria, for instance, stores are ramping up their online efforts and promoting their holiday deals well ahead of Black Friday. This, as most people are opting for online sales to stay safe. Now, business owners tell us they are coming up with creative and innovative ways to get people to shop local and in person.
But we're preparing to do home deliveries, free shipping. So if people are not comfortable coming out, we're going to have to do this balancing act this year.
Just changed our business models to keep afloat and keep our employees employed.
We want to present a sense of normalcy, normality.
Some boutiques are putting in shields and dividers to keep shoppers safe. They're also requiring all customers to wear masks. The day after Black Friday is Small Business Saturday. People can park for free and get free gifts with their purchases.
All right, thanks to our sister station Fox 5 in D.C. for that compilation of COVID-19 related stories. And you saw earlier as well when Sky Fox was up in Chicago. Well, that's a little bit loud. We'll get that out of the way for you. But you saw Sky Fox in Chicago talk all and show us really the huge lines that they are seeing with the COVID-19 testing. That's as the state of Illinois seeing a record today, more than 15,000 confirmed cases in Illinois. And a little bit later, we will have for you in full the state of Illinois update from Governor J.B. Pritzker. We'll keep an eye on that for you right here on News Now from Fox. Also, we should let you know 4 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Eastern. Just have that going off, a little alarm in your head. We will have you President Trump live at the Rose Garden talking about the COVID-19 update. And could he be talking about the election as well? We don't know. Possibly. We're going to show it to you in full so you get to see it just like if you were there at the Rose Garden. So stay right here with us. Looks like this is popping up here for us any moment. Should be happening at the top of the hour. A Minnesota COVID-19 update. We'll have that for you in a little bit. Also, about 10 minutes away from a California COVID-19 update. Boy, we got you covered here on News Now from Fox. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be full of news content here on this Friday. TGIF, News Now style. More coming up here in just a little bit, 2 minutes away. All right, while we wait for more live events throughout the country, we do have one that just popped up for us as well. We're going to take you out to Florida right now, where we are hearing from the family of Gregory Edwards, the soldier who died while in custody at the Brevard County Sheriff's Office back in 2018, holding a news conference. Let's listen in. You're watching on News Now from Fox.
Take care of those that have a mental illness.
Says if West Melbourne PD on the Walmart scene would have been told Gregory was inhaled toxic food puffing that day, he would have immediately been taken to the hospital. Any questions about the video or about what Sheriff Ivey is saying will be answered later on. Right now, there's 2 different stories out there, and everyone has a right to their story. But truth be told,
has Mrs. Edwards seen the video as of this afternoon?
I don't have that answer for you.
What was your reaction? Have you seen the video?
I have not.
Do you know Edwards' reaction to the video?
I didn't hear you.
Do you know what the family's reaction? Has anyone in the family seen the video, and if so, what was their reaction?
I don't know.
You mentioned you're going to continue fighting for justice. What are your next steps? After today, what are your next steps in pursuing that fight for justice?
The justice for Greg, he did not get due process. Right now, we will see what happens next. And it doesn't matter that what happened to Greg shouldn't have happened. He walked into that jail and he should have walked out of that jail, and he did not. The only thing in that video is shocking, and is that at the beginning of the video, Gregory was alive, and at the end, he was not. Let me say this, the Constitution guaranteed Gregory due process, one of the American principles he fought for as a serviceman. No one should die in police custody ever. And no matter what Gregory may or may not have done in his past, he still deserved due process. We reject the false narrative of deservingness that proclaims that if a suspect had a record, he deserved to be summarily executed by police. In America, everyone deserves due process. Everyone. Thank you.
That was the update there. We caught at the tail end. We'll play it for you out a little bit later in full on News Now from Fox. But just to give you a little context here, nearly 2 years after Gregory Edwards, who was 38 years old at the time, died while in custody In Brevard County, the sheriff's office released the video showing the last moments of his life today. The sheriff's office initially refused to release the video, but agreed to release it to the public following a court settlement. And we were hearing from some representatives there of the family. We continue to bring you the latest here on News Now from Fox. Let's go back out to Washington, D.C., where this was a Stop the Steal rally, but now it looks like things are getting a little bit heated right now. Let's listen in here.
You heard what he said to us? Bagshaw here. Where's Bagshaw at? Bagshaw here. Make sure you don't tear gas at Bagshaw. You didn't vote for Biden. Back the fuck up. All black people are Democrats. Back the fuck up. Back the fuck up. You sound stupid. No, you sound dumb. You don't know who I
You
voted for.
represent, this is what you want right here.
We didn't vote for him. Get the fuck out of here. You look stupid. We didn't vote for him. Goodbye.
They was here. They was
All
here.
black people are not Democrats. Never been a Democrat.
You never heard Joe Biden's shirt. He said, fuck the police.
I don't want that cop in the White House either, bitch. I didn't vote for no fucking cop.
It is.
I didn't vote on the Democratic Party, on the Democratic Party. Get out my face.
He now tell him all the time he's a racist ass cop. He's a crack.
No crack in the White House. Last time I checked, it was bugs. Last time I checked, it was bugs. We didn't vote for none of that shit.
Fuck Donald Trump and Biden too. That's what you don't understand.
You look real smart. You look real smart. I have a question.
I'm not here to talk to you. I'm not here to talk to you.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't care about Joe Biden. He ain't my motherfucking candidate.
Fuck Joe Biden.
Y'all sound so stupid. I didn't vote for no fucking Biden. Is that why you dumbasses are out here?
What you won't do is tear this wall down.
Biden or Trump?
Out here because they fucking lost.
What you won't do is tear this wall down. What you won't do is tear this wall down.
Because we don't like Trump, we want Biden.
What you won't do is tear this wall down. What you won't do is tear this wall down.
You can record that.
And just the sights and sounds of democracy in action here as, well, really both sides coming in Washington, D.C. You got some President Trump supporters there. You got, it looks like, Biden supporters agitating Trump supporters and vice versa. Hey, it's just a Friday. Just blowing off some steam here after the election here as we continue to roll on here on News Now from Fox, always bringing you the very latest. Here's what we got coming up for you. Minnesota update coming up in just moments, and then also a California update as well. Wow, we're going to be loaded here for you. And then, yeah, don't forget, everyone, 60 minutes away. 60 minutes away, we're going to have President Trump at the White House. We will bring that to you as soon as we get that. You're not going to miss anything right here. We got you covered, definitely here on News Now from Fox. In the meantime, in just a little bit, you're 5 minutes away from Daytona. Everett's going to be hosting you guys for a little bit, but we will play for you just because we were talking about COVID-19 updates across the board and getting you ready for all that. Why don't we play some Dr. Mike to get you really in the mode for some COVID-19 updates that are going to be coming across the board. Really, Dr. Mike always gives us a great way of showing us what's happening across the board that he's seeing nationwide. And then we'll really zoom in on some of those states like California and Minnesota in just a little bit here. So stay right here with us. We got you covered here on News Now from Fox.
Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine joining us on this Friday. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
Seems like it's been another long week. I do want to recap what happened during this week, starting with where we stand with the numbers in this virus.
Numbers are going way up. In fact, I believe the number yesterday nationwide was 260,000 new cases. Frightening. And that's not going to be the last time we hear of a record breaking number. We're really in it. It's getting worse and worse by the day.
And when we look even closer at the numbers and the patients, we're actually seeing a different set of patients than we did at the start of this pandemic. A lot of the patients were over 60. Now that number is much lower, Doc.
Well, the numbers indicate that young people are the majority of cases, probably most likely due to the fact that they tend to go out, congregate, ignore the current pandemic, and pretty much they're tired of it. Many of them are asymptomatic, and because of that, they spread the virus without knowing it. Then those people then can spread it to other people in a distant fashion, leading to both hospitalizations and even deaths.
Yeah, I know we're seeing younger patients here. What about the very young? A lot of parents, they come to you, they ask you, what about my children? How concerned should I be about my child and exposure?
Well, I believe that there is significant data, and we know this, that the numbers are going up in younger people, especially the very young. They, thank God, don't tend to get all that sick, but they can spread the virus. And there has been data suggesting that they have a much higher level of virus in them when they do get it, making them able to spread the virus. There's a lot of controversy about this. Some data indicates that they may not spread the virus as much as, say, older kids, teenagers. But for the most part, the way I look at this virus, Thomas, everyone that has the virus can spread the virus, no matter who you are.
And you mentioned the controversy. A lot of parents are fired up. Should students remain or continue with in-person learning moving forward?
Well, when it comes to in-house learning, remember, there are consequences with kids not socializing, being in a setting where they're learning with other children, having that supervision. Remember, a lot of parents have to work. So what do? They can't be home watching their kid, being the surrogate in-house teacher. They have to make a living to pay for things like food. So this is a real problem. And for those who are in that, my heart goes out to them. The bottom line is this, that if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to be in a far worse place than we are now. And they're talking about a prediction of 282,000 deaths by December 5th. Let's think about that. All right, that's only several weeks away. And all of the models, and by the way, they use about 36 models. It's almost like when you have weathercasters looking at spaghetti models. Well, sure. They look at 36 different models. And for the most part, we are in for a whole lot of hurt down the road.
And we're starting to see that hurt in our hospitals across the country. A spike in cases, the number of hospitalizations are going up. Is there a growing concern, Doc, about staffing issues as we move forward, as we look toward this peak or another peak?
Well, one of the things that keeps me up at night right now is the fact that this virus is now everywhere. In the beginning, it was on the East and West Coast. And what you saw was a call to arms, if you will. People were coming from the Midwest to help out staff hospitals should that surge get even worse. And now it's everywhere. Even in places like North Dakota, where the hospital administrators are allowing their healthcare workers to care for COVID-19 positive patients, even if they are positive with the virus and asymptomatic themselves.
And you get the standby orders as well, correct?
I'm always on call, ready to go. I'm not bragging about this, I've had 4 days off since March 13th. And so the issue is, when this all started, all of us are here at the ready to go. And should I need to be deployed to an ICU or an ER, I'm ready to go. Got my bags packed. Right now, though, my outpatient practice is going crazy because remember, Thomas, that for about a month and a half or so, no one was getting health care. Now people are coming back. They need mammograms. They need colonoscopies. I have diagnosed more cancer in the last month or so than I think I did all of last year. And this is because of the backlog of people coming in now. So that's part of the problem. We have hospitals that are full with traditional patients, and now the COVID numbers are going up, and we have to juggle where we put the COVID-19 patients and what do we do with the folks that just had a bypass surgery.
Well, it's concerning. I mean, you're not only dealing with the physical, you're also dealing with the mental. I know new research came out, 1 in 5 diagnosed with COVID-19, they're going to be diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder like anxiety, depression, insomnia within 3 months.
No question about it. This is taking a toll on every level, both physical and emotional. It is unprecedented, and I hope and pray, Thomas, that in our lifetimes we never see this again. It could happen, but hopefully not.
All right, I want to try to end the week on a positive note here because there was encouraging news on the vaccine front. Pfizer announcing success in phase 3 of its trials. Can you get us up to speed here?
This is about as excited as I can get, as hard as that is to believe. The bottom line is that Pfizer's vaccine, which is a new type of vaccine, it's an mRNA, messenger RNA vaccine, tremendous positive results in its trials. And what I'm thinking is that if we can just hold on, we need to wear masks, socially distance, put our own individual civil liberties, perhaps, and independence a little bit back in the benefit of our own, all of our society. Perhaps that's one mentality that we have to adopt. Wear your mask. It's your civic duty. Stay away from crowds. It's your civic duty. Make sure that you use good hand hygiene. It's your civic duty. And when it comes to the holidays, be very, very careful and cautious. We will get through this. We're almost there.
And on the mask front, we learned this week new guidance from the CDC. I'm not only protecting you, I'm protecting myself as well.
It's the right thing to do, Thomas. You must wear a mask to not only protect your loved ones, your friends, and society at large, but you also will protect yourself. And so wearing a mask is critical. And in the very beginning, and I want to defend Dr. Fauci on this because I hear this from my patients. Well, in the very beginning, he said, no, listen, this has been a steep learning curve for all of us. None of us, unless you were alive in 1918, went through this. And so it's a learning curve. We now know, without a doubt, that you must wear a mask and that you must do the things that we're telling you to do, like socially distance. If you wear a mask, socially distance, and are an upstanding citizen, we will get through this.
And can you give us a reminder, because we're seeing a lot more masks on the market now, what's the best type of mask to wear?
For the general public, Thomas, I recommend that people wear cotton masks that have high thread count and they have several layers. One, it has to be fitted so that it goes from the top of your nose down to under your chin, and it's washable. What else can you do? It's the best thing. Buy a bunch of them, make them, do whatever you need to do for you and your kids and your family. And maybe for the holidays, make some and give them as presents. Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
You know, Doc, I wonder, because you've been offering this reminder for several months now and people still aren't agreeing to wear the mask. Do you think it's possible to hit the reset button at any point on how divided we've become with combating this virus?
I've thought a lot about this, Thomas, and if you look at countries like China, and look, I believe in the American way. I believe in democracy with my heart and soul. I believe in capitalism. But this time of the planet, it's actually a little better to be in a draconian environment. I hate to say it, because there, in those environments, you don't have a choice about whether you should wear a mask or not. You are mandated to wear a mask. It's not an insult on your civil liberties, your personal freedoms. It's the right thing to do. It's what we all must do. Bottom line, science.
All right, drive it home. Our daily reminder, Dr. Mike, on staying safe.
Need to wear your mask, socially distance yourself, and remember, in 2 weeks or so, Thanksgiving. Think long and hard, folks, about what you're planning to do, because you've got to do it right so you don't harm anyone that you love.
Could make a big difference. Dr. Mike Sirigliano with Penn Medicine out of Philly. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
All right, you're watching News Now from Fox. We've got a couple big events to show you here. It is really going off on this Friday morning. Right here is Washington, D.C. We were showing you these pictures not long ago. Mike Page was showing you that. The Stop the Steal rally, things have kind of slowed down a little bit right now, but we are following this. I want to take you out to Georgia, though, where there's a couple other events going on as well. This just popped up in our feed. Let's look over. This right here is the Georgia GOP Senate rally. Also, a couple rallies going on across the country. This is in Cummings, Georgia. It looks like the event hasn't quite started yet, but we're seeing several people out there holding up signs of senators, Republican senators, that they are in support of. Maybe we can listen in to that room right now again in Cummings, Georgia, to see what they're saying out there.
Hello, Forsyth County. Welcome. My name's Carter Patterson. Myself and Carter Barrett are the two Carters that represent the Purdue campaign here in Forsyth County. Now, if you're like me, you went to bed on Tuesday, November 3rd with a smile on your face thinking our president was reelected. And then you woke up on Wednesday morning and saw something else. If you're as mad as hell as I am, let me hear it. Folks, we had 80% turnout in Forsyth County to vote on Election Day. If we had 100% vote, President Trump will be ahead right now in Georgia. And perhaps David Perdue wouldn't be in a runoff. All of you are hereby part of these campaigns. You are all responsible not just for yourselves to vote, but to make sure everybody you know that can be registered to vote is registered to vote, and that everybody you know votes. When early voting starts, it is your responsibility to make sure they get to the polls. If you need to drive them to the polls. If you need to put a stamp on an absentee ballot request, you do it. We are in the fight of our lifetime. Let's show up like we always do. Forsyth County is #1 in this state in everything. Let's show the world on January 5th that we can get 100% participation in this election. Now, before I hand it off to my friend Carter Barrett here, Carter's going to talk about all the VIPs we have here tonight. But one of my good friends here tonight isn't an elected official. His name is Dr. Rich McCormick. And Dr. Rich McCormick, he put on one hell of a campaign. He worked his tail off, and in my opinion, has the majority vote in the 7th district. But he's not going to be able to represent us. In fact, we're not going to be represented at all in the House of Representatives because of this election and what ballot harvesting did by the Democratic Party. Our only 2 representatives right now are in the room, and those are our U.S. senators. We need to fight like hell to keep representation in Washington, and this is our last chance. My good friend Carter Barrett.
Carter. Thank you, Carter Patterson. He's smart Carter. I'm the other Carter. I have such a distinct privilege today to get to introduce some of my favorite people in the world. Everybody I'm going to announce here knows something about winning elections, because every one of these guys just about has run a race and won with a resounding outcome. I'd like to start with a couple of quick shout outs. Catherine James from the Lumpkin County Party. Chairman Catherine, where are you? Thank you, Catherine, there in the back. Bobby Donnelly, where are you? There's Bobby up front. Bobby's first vice chair of our Republican Party here in Forsyth County. He's awesome. Senator Greg Dolezal, where are you? If you're not sure how to help, and if you're a brand new neophyte helping on a campaign, talk to that guy. He has forgotten more about winning elections than I think I'll ever know. So call Greg. Representative Sherry Gilligan, are you out there? There she is. Sherry has been a force of nature when it comes to winning elections since she got started back in 2014, right? November. Todd Jones, I'm not sure if Todd's here right now, but Todd he's doing so much to make Forsyth County 100% voter turnout for Republican parties. And his awesome, awesome wife is here. In fact, Tracy's out there, and they're passing around some sheets. If you want to volunteer, back on the back corner back there, she's got the sheets. Sign up, log in, get your emails out, and let's get to work ASAP, tomorrow, today, this afternoon. Our county commissioners, Alfred John, where are you? There you are, Alfred. Alfred's our newest commissioner. We're super excited about Alfred. Dennis Brown, where are you? Dennis Brown. Dennis Brown is maybe the nicest guy in politics. And this last one I'm so honored to get to introduce. This guy is really too good to be true. He goes everywhere. He shows up. He helps out. He does it all. And I don't know how they have enough time, and his awesome wife is right there with him every step of the way, Dana. I have the great privilege of introducing a true Forsyth hero, Sheriff Ron Freeman.
Forsyth County, this is the way to show up. Good job. Guys, every one of these people that we're going to introduce in a minute, that I get the honor to introduce, Senator Loeffler, Senator Perdue, they're the only senators who pick up the phone and call me and ask, what can we do for law enforcement? What can we do for law and order? What do you need? What are you seeing? Political or not, they're the only ones that picked up the phone and called me. Folks, we are in a fight for our lives. We're in a fight for representation. We're in a fight for America. And I hope that you will recognize that. And I know you do because you're here. You know, we've even got Senator Rick Scott with us today. Now, I know he comes from that other state below us, and they've got that other football team there. Okay? Now, I went to Georgia Southern. Last time we played them, we beat them. Okay? But, folks, these are the pride and joy of Georgia. And I want you to put your hands together and welcome Senator Rick Scott, Kelly Loeffler, and David Perdue.
It's great to be in Georgia. It's great to be around a great sheriff. We have
We have 66 wonderful sheriffs in our state. You probably see a couple of them on TV all the time. I think everybody in the nation knows Grady Judd. But it's great to be here in Georgia. I'm here for one purpose: win these elections. So I talked to the White House just before I came, and what the president wants to tell you, he loves Georgia. He wants to make sure every legal vote is counted. He remains optimistic, but he knows this is a lot of work to do, and he's very appreciative of what all of you have done to try to make sure we keep this country in the right direction. So let me just talk about David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, two wonderful individuals that respect, recognize, and reward hard work. They're business people, so they understand the importance of getting people back to work and the importance of a job. The most important thing we can do for every family is make sure they can be self-sufficient. And you don't do that by government handouts. You do it by making sure people can get a great job, and that's what they believe in. They've been successful because they have common sense. You wouldn't be successful in business if you weren't logical about what you did, and they do, and they care about everybody in this state. Now, let's think about their opponents. You know, the opponents are basically just puppets for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So if you vote for their opponent, you're just voting for all the bad things that Nancy Pelosi, AOC, and Chuck Schumer believe in. So no, Chuck Schumer, you saw what Chuck Schumer said, right? He said, first we're going to take Georgia and then we're going to change the country. Not in Georgia, not today. And by the way, what is their change? Number one, they want to pack the Supreme Court so they can infringe of our First Amendment rights, our gun rights. It's not going to happen. Next, they want to take away everybody's private health care option. They want the Green New Deal, which will kill our economy. They want to defund the police. That's right, hell no. And they believe in socialism. So how do we win these elections? It's votes. So the moment you can vote, go vote. The moment you can get your friend to go vote, you make sure they go vote. We need to do everything we can to get our votes in as early as possible. We've got to do this all across the state. This is the Democrats believe this is their chance. If they win the Senate, then all their bad stuff they can pass. So we can win this. It's the right thing for Florida. It's the right thing for Georgia. It's the right thing for the country. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Now it's my distinct opportunity to introduce somebody I've gotten to know over the last year, and she's done a great job in the Senate. She cares about you. She has common sense, and she will continue to be a great United States Senator from the great state of Georgia. Kelly Loeffler.
Thank you. Wow. Hello, Forsyth County. Wow. Oh, thank you. Right there. Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you. Well, it seems like it wasn't that long ago when we were here with Marsha Blackburn telling you we were going to get the job done. We did. And I am so grateful, but we got a battle on our hands right now, folks, and it's gonna be a long one. And first of all, let me start by saying I am grateful and so appreciative of Congressman Collins for his endorsement. That's right. We are all in this together to get this done, but make no mistake, we are the firewall, not just for the U.S. Senate, but the future of our country. That's right. And I want to thank you for being involved. We need you. This is going to be 7 weeks that we need you to stay involved, because look what's happening. Chuck Schumer is promising to change America starting right here in Georgia. That's right. That's right. Look, you're part of history. You are part of history. You are going to change the future of this country by voting for Republicans in this race, and it is going to be so important to the rest of the country. I talk to people across the country every day. They know you're going to get it done, but I need you to make sure that your friends, your family, everyone is engaged. We're asking that because not only do they have radical policies, Green New Deal, high taxes, big government, open borders, defund the police, abortion on demand, destroy the Second Amendment, everything like that. They have radical candidates. In my race, the person I'm running against was undefined. He is someone that I am now going to tell you exactly who he is. He has supported Marxist ideas. He's embraced communists. He welcomed Fidel Castro into his church. A communist, that's right. A communist dictator who killed people. He welcomed him into his church. He believes that Jeremiah Wright should be celebrated as a prophet. I say, God bless America. God does not want to damn America, and we won't stand for that. Not in Georgia. Not in Georgia. That's right. But look, David Perdue and I, no one is going to outwork us to make sure that Georgians have what they need, that America has the freedoms that we deserve and our God-given rights under the Constitution. So we're going to continue to fight for conservative values, for affordable health care, for school choice, for conservative values that lift everyone up. We will be your voice in Washington if you're our voice on January 5th. That's right. But I got to tell you, I need your help. I need you to get involved. Get involved on social media, Facebook and Twitter. Facebook won't let us advertise right now. Big tech, we got to stand up against big tech, the fake news, communist China. We are standing up for you. But look, we need you to be our voice. So please get involved, chip in, get your friends and family in, and vote early. And I just want to say thank you, God bless America, and welcome David Perdue.
Kelly. Thank you guys. Boy, what a great afternoon. Thank you. I want to thank the Black Diamond Group. You guys stick around for dinner. I think we can make it a pretty good day for them. What do you think? I'm here today to do two things. One is I want to thank you for getting us to this position. We proved to the rest of the country that Georgia is not turning blue. Let me show you what we just did. I almost got 50%. I've already won this race one time, thanks to you. We beat them by 2 points. The problem is we have a law that says you have to get over 50%. We became 13,000 votes short of that, so we have to do it again. And with your help, we'll get over that number. The Libertarian got over 2 points, so we produced 52.5% of Georgians said no to the liberal propaganda that the Democrats are trying to perpetrate on this country. Thank you for that. What we have to do now, though, is not persuade people. What we have to do is get the vote out. In Forsyth County, we just produced 85,000 votes. We do that again, we win. Kelly wins, I win, and we save America. I'm going to echo what Kelly and Rick said, and I want to thank Rick Scott for coming up. This is not the first time. Rick has been such a warrior for our president and for the right. This is what we have to do, though. We have to tell our friends who voted for Donald Trump, and they may be disappointed. I'm disappointed for sure. And if that ends up holding, we don't know how that's going to turn out yet, but we have to make sure every Republican votes in this runoff, regardless. And here's why. What the Democrats want to do, you have to listen to Chuck Schumer. Chuck said he wants the majority. They've got 48 votes now. They have to have her vote and my seat to get 50 votes. And then with the vice president, that'll be the tiebreaker. We're not going to let that happen, right? Here's why we're not going to let it happen. Every generation faces this moment of truth. This is our moment of truth. Schumer will change the rules up there. He'll add 2 states, 4 Democratic seats. He wants to stack the Supreme Court, y'all. We're not going to let that happen. Not better. Made in China. All right, if you guys can't hear me, Yeah, raise your hand back there. We'll persevere here. Here's what they want to do. You've heard it, and I'm going to say it one time. They really want to defund the police when we should be defending the police officers. They want open borders in sanctuary cities. Tell me how that's going to make our neighborhoods safer. It's not. They want to reduce the size of our military, just like Obama did, just like Bill Clinton did. We cannot let that happen, just when we're standing up to China. They want to take our private health insurance that we get from our employer, 180 million people, they want to take it away from us. They voted against, they would have voted against PPP that saved 1.5 million jobs in Georgia. In addition to that, they want the Green New Deal, y'all. This cannot happen. So what do we need to do? It's very simple. We have to get our vote out. I'm going to ask Kelly to come back up here and stand with me. Guys, this is it. I win, she wins, I win. It's as simple as this. Kelly and I are asking you to stand with us. Stand in the breach against socialism. Stand in the breach against Chuck Schumer. And stand with us to make sure that we can go back to Washington and stand up against AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and all these radical leftists. Make sure we can do that. But most importantly, stand with us and let's make darn sure that the road to socialism never runs through the state of Georgia. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You're watching News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. That was a GOP Senate rally out there in Georgia as Georgia continues to count those ballots. You can see that's a live picture in the bottom right-hand corner in Cobb County. This is one of those states that really has become a battleground state. Those were both of the Republican senators out there in Georgia. This is an essential race for the Senate to see who ends up taking the majority. This is something that we won't know for the next month or so. So we will continue to update you on this race and all election news, but we are going to switch gears a little bit. First of all, I will say hello to all of you here on News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. Happy Friday. We're happy to have you here. We're going to be bringing you to all of the live events across the country today, including all of your COVID-19 news. First, I'm going to send some of you off to a 2-minute commercial break. When you come back, you'll have an update from California, Oakland, California. Dr. Daly out there is addressing all of the COVID-19 updates on the West Coast. But this is important today. COVID-19 travel restrictions have been put into place in California and Washington and Oregon. So big time advisory is going on out there, and I'm sure he will be diving pretty deep into that. So that's what you'll see when you come back. We're going to send you off now. For everyone who is sticking around, thank you so much for joining us here on News Now from Fox. We're going to send you off to that event.
Businesses open, but they keep all of us employed. And so we hope that businesses will choose to implement the guidance, follow our tiering system. And if there is, challenges with that, we look to local enforcement, state level enforcement, to really help guide businesses back into the tiering system as we put it there. And it's been happening to date, and it will continue to happen into the future.
Lana Ibarra, Cal Matters.
Hi, Dr. Gelly. My question is about the state's vaccine plan. I'm wondering when we should expect to see a final or more detailed breakdown of who exactly will get vaccines first, And I'm wondering how much of that decision will fall on counties. If different counties might want to prioritize different groups after health workers, are we going to see a distribution that varies by county? And do you expect teachers to be among the first group? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, all good questions. I will tell you that we're actively working on that. Our drafting guidelines work group has already met 2 times to have the conversations about exactly who is in that priority group 1A, who's in 1B, who comes next. We know that the first that we'll start with are our frontline healthcare workers, our first responders, then looking to those most vulnerable, especially in congregate care facilities like our skilled nursing facilities. And after that, as we have a little bit of time to plan, we'll be working on putting that out as soon as we have agreement and consensus. We believe that the state's guidelines will do a lot to inform the counties. If there are counties that decide to prioritize slightly differently, we'll have those conversations as they are appropriate. And of course, teachers, as an important part of our workforce, will be a priority, but exactly where they fall after that 1A priority group is yet to be determined.
Alex Michelson, Fox 11 News.
Thank you, Dr. Galley, and thank you for taking our questions. A follow-up on Claudia's question about the restaurant experience for the governor. And there are a lot of people out there on social media, especially today, who are saying, do as I say, not as I do. I'm wondering what you say to those critics as you're trying to voluntarily, have people listen to what you have to say. And also, when it comes to the restrictions, as you mentioned, the purple tier is the most restrictive thing. We're still seeing increases in these places with the purple tier. Are we going to add to that purple tier and make things more restrictive? Is that an option?
Yeah, again, as it relates to the first part of your question, I'll point you back to the governor's statement and his team in the governor's office for further follow-up. But certainly, as we look at surging cases, we have the guidance and the tips for a reason. We believe they are the strategies to keep ourselves and our communities safe, and we hope and expect people to take them seriously. It's important and it's sobering when people do find loved ones who are infected, who have serious consequences, and even when loved ones die, that those are avoidable situations in many, many cases. And the tools and tips that we're providing, especially moving into the winter and the holiday season, that they are even more important in keeping our guard up, no matter where you are, indoors, outdoors, with people who you're not familiar with or haven't seen in quite some time. It is absolutely critical. And that is, for me, the overwhelming message, not just of today, it has been for a while, but it punctuates where we are today and needs to, I hope every Californian does consider how they can do that and do it even more than they have been in the past. As it relates to a more restrictive purple tier, as I said, we certainly could consider what those activities will be. But I will say, first and foremost, that case spread even in purple counties is not unexpected when the baseline transmission rates across our state, across our nation, are as high as they are. The tiering system is really there to help us reduce as much risk as we can, and that's whether the transmission rates are really low or as high as they are today. And I just call upon all of us to consider what we can do in those purple counties. I myself live in Los Angeles County. I've been talking to my own family about how we are going to adjust our own behaviors, considering the surge in cases and the fact that Los Angeles County, like many other counties across the state, has seen a near doubling, if not more, of their average daily case rates in the past week or two. And that's important to keep in mind. So, not that more restrictions won't come, but we are imploring and asking Californians to consider what more they can do, whatever tier their county is in, but in particular, those purple tier counties where further restrictions are not yet outlined.
Christopher Intagliata, NPR.
Hi, Dr. Galley. Thanks for taking my question. This is a question about the state's tier system, and now that counties are sliding back into these more restrictive tiers, I'm wondering if we're dialing back the economy in smarter, more nuanced ways now than we did in the spring, based on what we know about how the virus spreads. And can you give an example or two of that, if so?
Yeah, I mean, I believe we have. I think the whole tiering system was based on updated science and information and experience. In many ways, in March, we looked at really just blunt tools, statewide stay-at-home orders, closures of sectors that we had a sense were high risk, but weren't sure because the data was still evolving. Today, we have good information about the activities that I explained earlier that create a higher risk of spread. And as we get transmission rates higher, those are exactly the kind of sectors that become more restricted and in some places closed down for a period of time. But even in the purple tier, there's some activities that weren't so much allowed early on because of our learnings about things that reduce risk in some of those settings. So, you can look at the tiering system in the exact sectors and apply some of the basic conditions of a high risk setting versus a low risk setting and see why those different sectors are assigned in each of those tiers. And so as counties move back, that's exactly what drives what is and isn't allowed to occur from a business or social sector perspective.
Audrey Levokis, KCRA 3.
Hi, Dr. Galley. My question is in reference to that travel advisory and the 14-day quarantine period. The travel advisory is coming pretty close to Thanksgiving, and for people who are working during the pandemic, they've likely already made their travel plans if they're going out of state. Are you asking them to lose out on potentially 2 weeks of work to quarantine when they come back?
I mean, really, we're asking people to first consider whether that non-essential travel is the right thing to do now. I think that's first and foremost. We urge people to consider staying close to home, staying at home, staying with their household, experiencing loved ones virtually, on the phone, by Zoom, by whatever mode they can imagine, but really choosing to make that decision today rather than risk getting infected themselves or additionally bringing home the virus and having it transmitted in our workplaces or in other parts of our state, especially given the levels of transmission that we see. But if the choice is made to go and travel, we do urge people to do the 14-day quarantine when they return, because that is one of the first lines of defense at reducing transmission after such an experience. So the quick answer to your question is yes, that is our recommendation. That is what we're asking people to do. We know it's not an easy thing to do, that it creates a hardship, but we know that if we're going to get through this really difficult time with surging cases, that these are the important steps that we need to make as personal and individual choices.
Dan Albano, Southern California News Group.
Hi, Dr. Galley. I was wondering if you could give an update on the guidelines for high school and youth sports to return to competition. That was a topic earlier this week, and I wonder what your thoughts are today with the travel advisory being reinforced, when it's very possible that youth sports families are traveling today out of state for a competition, and in Irvine, there's out-of-state swimmers that are competing in a USA swimming competition. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I know I've said this now a couple of times when I've gotten this question, that it's coming soon, and it really is coming soon. We are finalizing it in lots of conversations with stakeholders who care deeply about this guidance, making sure that we're following the science, understanding what's possible here in California, respecting the fact that we're seeing a surge in cases, and knowing that the timing with this is important in everything. So stay tuned, it will come out soon. As it relates to the application of the travel advisory, absolutely. If a family is going to take the risk and travel out of state to compete or practice for a youth sport or any sport, that we're asking them, first off, not to do that, to make the decision to stay local, stay home. That certainly having kids myself, I understand the excitement, the urge, the fact that we miss it, the fact that our kids are having challenges, not playing and practicing their favorite sports. But this isn't the time to put our guard down, and this is one of the important parts of keeping our guard up, avoiding making the decision not to travel. But if it turns out that you do and you make that decision, we do urge you, anyone around you who made the same choice to quarantine for 14 days upon return, so that we make sure that the decision that you've made doesn't impact a broader part of your community and the state overall. In many ways, what we need to do is keep in mind that our hospital system's capacity, that the protection and safety of our frontline healthcare workers depend on our decision. We're seeing that in other states. Overwhelmed emergency rooms, hospitals without enough beds, without enough staff. And we are giving all of this guidance in order to avoid those situations here in California. We've been fortunate because of the work each of you have done to avoid that in large part, and we can do it again, but making the decisions around travel during this time are part of keeping that guard up.
Brody Levesque, Los Angeles Blade.
Hi, Dr. Galley. About three of my colleagues answered all my questions, so I'm going to take this in a different direction. In the last week or so, I've been speaking to members of the LGBTQI community who identify as Latinx, Latino, Latina, and some Asian American LGBTQ people beyond Los Angeles County, working into San Diego County, the Imperial Valley, even out in the Coachella Valley, in that area. One of the things that I'm hearing from them is they're not getting a lot of good information coming out of the various health departments, and they're not seeing too much from Cal Department of Health in terms of advertisements or messaging in their own language. And the other concern they've got, it revolves around the issue with masks, which, as you know, has become so highly politicized, and now the vaccines seem to be headed that direction as well. They wanted me to ask you directly, since you're the Secretary of Health, what efforts are you and your staff going to make to kind of put their minds and their communities at ease and get a little bit better information out there? Because there's a lot of things being said, but not a lot is being directed at them. This is what they're telling me, so I'm relaying it to you.
Yeah, first off, thank you, Brody, for the information. Often the questions that I'm asked are informational for me, and this is a good example of that. I think what we have certainly clearly sensed over the past many weeks and months is the need to improve our own relatability with our messages. I think identifying all of the populations, I mean, California isn't just 40 million people strong. We are as rich in our diversity, and the need and really the requirement for us to communicate clearly and effectively with all of our populations is important. I won't tell you that I can point to the specific piece of public service announcement or mask message that I would point to at the moment, but I think that you just highlight our ongoing focus and need to improve our messaging and our ability to relate to all Californians. And I hope the next time you ask me a question, give me a little bit of time, you will say, you will highlight the improvements that we've made in some of these areas that you frequently ask us about.
Final question, Victoria Colliver, Politico.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Last one here. My question has to do with the Central Valley region. It's been obviously a early and stubborn hotspot. The state put a lot of resources in there. Things improved like the rest of the state, things going in the wrong direction. I'm curious if there were things that you learned from that intervention as a state that could be helpful, particular to that region in helping it reduce the spread. Is anything different about that than other parts of the state that you've learned since you've put some time and attention there?
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, for the question, and thank you for bringing up the Central Valley. In fact, because of the surge in cases, reinvigorating that Central Valley focus and task force has been among our priorities, working with those county leaders and really thinking about it regionally. I often say we have the county structure in California and we use it often and frequently, but then the truth with COVID is it doesn't respect and maintain county lines. So thinking about this regionally as we did in the Central Valley has been an important illustration and effective tool in sharing best practices, because often, the counties share a culture, share a, different majority ethnic groups, etc. So we have increased our ability and thoughtfulness around what sort of messaging and communication tools work in the Central Valley, different than, let's say, other parts, the northern part of the state, certainly the Bay Area and Southern California. Our work with various employers, focusing on the agricultural industry, focusing on certain factories and other entities that predominate in the Central Valley, really revisiting sort of how the essential workers in the Central Valley, both not only how they work, but when they return home, some of the conditions that they return to, often living in multi-generational families, often living in tighter living quarters, that all of those have guided the messaging. And certainly, for example, when it comes to isolation, when somebody has been tested positive, and an influx of mobile testing, an influx of some of the other state-sponsored, county-sponsored testing opportunities have been brought to the Central Valley. But then when tests are positive, the reality that not everybody can simply isolate, that it's not easy to find a room free from anybody else, a room in a hotel where it might be cost prohibitive to stay there for 14 days, that there are other things that people can do to reduce their risk, keeping a surgical mask on as much as possible, reducing their time outdoors. These are tools that we have learned through our experiences in the Central Valley that are opportunities to do isolation a little bit differently. Although we know that if you can isolate completely for 14 days, that is the surest fire best way to go. But if you can't, there are certainly things you can do to reduce the risk of transmission to others. So all of those are lessons we learned as part of our Central Valley partnership and experience. And I in no way want to give the impression because it isn't done. It is now just being focused on even more. And as we focus not just on the Central Valley, but other regions of California, we look forward to implementing the lessons that we learned there and in other parts of the state as we address the pandemic. So with that, I know this just shy of 2 weeks from now, an important American holiday, but then so many other important events that come with the late fall and early winter. Today's message is really about how we keep our guard up, how we make additional decisions to not just keep ourselves and families safe, but our overall community, our healthcare delivery system able to serve the needs of those who are sick, not just from COVID, but others. And we know this is a difficult time for many personally, for many businesses, and a number of others throughout our state. And we trust that the message that we give today isn't an easy one, but it's an important one. And as Dr. Pond mentioned, that rapid rise in cases, that together we can come together again to not just reduce the slope of that curve, but ultimately flatten it, crush it again, and get our whole state to a better place. So with that, I look forward to seeing you next week. And I wish each of you a safe and enjoyable weekend.
All right, you're watching News Now from Fox. That was an update coming out of California about COVID-19. So what we know right now is some travel advisories are going into effect on the West Coast. as cases continue to surge out there, which is a similar sentiment to several other places around the country. We're also going to show you an update coming out of Illinois as well, as they see a surge in cases. Governor Parikh saying that Illinois is on the verge of a new shutdown. That's as the state is reporting 15,415 new cases and 27 deaths. So that's actually a live event that's going on right now. But I did want to take you to this live look of the Rose Garden, where President Trump will be making some public remarks. That's just in the next few, well, he's always a little bit late, but it's supposed to be at 2 o'clock. So Mike Page will be taking over, and we will bring that event to you as soon as it happens. You can see the event is in the works right now. Nobody has taken their seats yet, so it's not going to start anytime totally soon. But of course, here on News Now from Fox, we will bring it to you as soon as possible. I'm Daytona Everett here with News Now from Fox. We've taken you to election officials across the country. We've taken you to COVID-19 briefings across the country. We've shown you what our sister stations are doing, doing sit-down interviews with several election experts out there, trying to talk about what is going on. We are waiting on some results coming from Georgia, which is a major swing state, not only for the Senate race where there's a runoff going on, but also for the presidential race, as the Fox News decision desk has not quite called it yet, but we are waiting on that as well. So as we wait for all of this, we're going to send some of you off to a 2-minute commercial break. We'll see you after that. For those of you who are staying with us right now, we told you briefly about that COVID-19 update coming out of Illinois. So we'll head over to that until President Trump takes the podium.
For COVID, and a percentage of those are going to go on to need hospitalization, and unfortunately some of them are going to die. So whether you were diagnosed with the molecular test or the rapid antigen test, I don't think we want to get into parsing out how were you diagnosed. Those tests tell people who have COVID, and we're going to care for all of them the same.
Dr. Nzike, so the PCR, the molecular test, is much more reliable. And this is kind of goofy, but Elon Musk today took 4 antigen tests. 2 came back negative, 2 came back positive. The Chicago Bears one time, they had 9 false positives. Those were also the rapid saliva antigen test. Is there any way you could push back from the CDC and just say, can we separate those and not count those tests because they are not as reliable as the PCR?
So actually, if you want to get into the sensitivity and specificity, they're both tests are in the 90s, in the high 90s. So those are both good tests. Yes, there's always a gold standard test, and the PCR test is the gold standard. But just with many other screening tests that you can have, take a pregnancy test. You can have a blood test. You can have the one that you can get from the drugstore, even the dollar store, and you will still use that. And you know that that's going to give you a reliable result. Are there a few cases in which it won't be perfect? Yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean that you're going to throw away a positive pregnancy test and say that there's no way you could be pregnant. So I think people just need to wrap their arms around this test and understand it's a very good test. It's better than some of the other tests that have come out before it. I think the data, again, with anything that's new, you will have research papers and science and literature that will come and give you all of that additional data to support what we're saying now. But this is the CDC recommendation. We have a test that is good, that will give us accurate results. It helps us identify cases even sooner, which is so important when you're trying to have the people who are infected isolate as soon as possible instead of spreading it around in the interim while waiting, 2 days for the PCR result.
Can I just ask a follow-up, Dr. Zike, sorry, on the initial questions here. So if we were using the mathematics of 9 days ago, 8 days ago, where we did not combine, what would today's number be? Because I feel like people are used to an apples to apple.
14% of 7,000 is about 1,000.
Okay.
So it would be 1,000 less than 15,000. What are we? 500?
Yeah.
And Chris, I'll get you the exact breakdown from TPH.
I think. May I just say though? There are people who are kind of promoting some sort of conspiracy here about it, and the truth is that first of all, the federal government has distributed the new antigen test called BinaxNOW, which is produced by Abbott, actually here in Illinois. And it has a 90+%, I don't know what the exact number is, sensitivity. So it's very close to the PCR test, but yes, it's not quite. And that's why the CDC wanted to divide those numbers up. But it's not, literally you're talking about roughly 1,000 tests, roughly 100,000 tests that are PCR, and roughly 6,000 or 7,000 that are antigen at this point. So, this idea that we're piling on tests and trying to make it look, listen, nobody wants to have more positive tests showing up in the state of Illinois. What we do want to know, though, is if people are positive. And I'm talking about 90+% of the people who are taking antigen test and getting tested positive are in fact positive. So, we're going to need to use saliva tests, we're going to need to use antigen tests, we're going to need to use PCR tests. Let me remind you that a PCR test takes about 3 to 4 hours to run the test. And, and some of these other tests like BinaxNOW, that's a 15-minute test. That's a huge benefit. To be able to test lots and lots of people in a very short period of time, that's a huge benefit. And so we're going to take advantage of the fact that the federal government sent us those tests.
So, Governor, to the point of the underlying question, which was, your reaction to these numbers today, regardless.
They're awful. They're awful. We are at a crisis level. I've said that for some time. If we're watching these numbers go up, there has got to be some personal responsibility that gets taken by not only people for wearing masks in their communities and asking their neighbors and friends who are not wearing masks to wear them, but also the local leaders, as I've said, who are taking no responsibility. And in fact, they're leading others to believe that, it's okay if you gather in big groups. It's okay if you have a concert in your bar. It's okay if people don't wear masks. And that's just wrong. That is the conspiracy that is working against the people of the state of Illinois.
In terms of the Chicago area specifically and non-ICU bed availability, I know according to the website, regions 7, 8, and 10 are now below 20%. In the first wave in the Chicago area, did it ever get below 20%? Where are we right now compared to the low point of the first wave as far as hospital beds?